All right, welcome back to Clash of Cultures. We're coming at y'all with another bonus video. Last week we gave y'all NBA Top 25 with guest appearance by Edgar. This week we're going to do the NFL Top Offensive 25 players with obviously myself, Steven, my dad, Kelvin, my two close friends, Sterling and Christian here. So we got 4 members on the panel this week, so 4 different opinions. But just because, last time we did a Top 25, the video was really long, so we're going to try to kind of cut that down a bit, so we're just gonna hop straight into it.
Hey, Christian, Drake, frame it out, man. He got an iPhone 3 or something.
Shut up, bro. All right, listen up. So we're gonna kick it off with the honorable mentions. Dad, go ahead and give your first honorable mention.
All right, my first honorable mention is Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray did not make my top 25.
Okay, so does anybody else have Kyler Murray as an honorable mention or a top 25 player?
Nope, I did not.
I forgot about the guy.
Yeah, he wasn't in my top 25. He wasn't even a guy I thought of. When you're thinking of like top quarterbacks, I feel like he doesn't even scratch that realm. That's why I didn't even have him on there. Christian, who did you have as your first honorable mention?
Mike Evans.
He's your honorable mention? He's not a top 25 for you?
Not my top 25. I had to be non-biased.
Okay. Did anybody have Mike Evans anywhere up here?
No.
Neither did I. Sterling, who did you have as your honorable mention, your first one?
My first one is CMC. I got Christian McCaffrey.
Okay, I got him in my 25.
I figured.
Me too.
Yeah,
it was hard. I ain't gonna lie.
He's not in my top 25. I didn't have.
He's not an honorable mention.
No, I don't have him as an honorable mention.
What?
Either. Just because I'm thinking of top. So if we're doing top 25 skill positions, he'd probably be in here because a few of these spots would be taken away. But when you're looking at 11 different positions on the field, it's kind of hard. So it was just hard for me to put him there. When you're looking at a lot of these other guys, my first honorable mention, which is going to be a bit of a head scratcher for most, it might, only because he hasn't played much. But at his peak and the last time we saw him, he's one of the most dominant receivers in the game. I have DeAndre Hopkins as an honorable mention. I still think he's in that realm of a top 25 player. Is he on your guys' top 25 list?
Yes, he's on mine.
Yes, he is. Yeah.
I don't think he's on mine.
I didn't put him in the top 25 just because he hasn't played. And I feel like I would have snubbed some of the people who have been producing. Obviously, if you're top 25 here, you've been producing. But who did you have at your second honorable mention?
So my second honorable mention, I'm sure some of y'all got him on your list, but my second honorable mention is Justin Herbert.
Why didn't you feel like he could be in the top 25?
We're looking right now, right? I'm not looking at potential. Chargers are having issues. Only 12 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Again, I don't think he's putting up the numbers that we expected from him. And I don't think the Chargers are producing the wins that we expected from them. So I have him as an honorable mention.
Okay. Christian, who was your second honorable mention?
Now I'm going to say I don't think anybody has this person. I got Justin Tucker, the Baltimore kicker.
Bro, he's not even an offensive player.
That's like special teams.
That's offensive player. That's offensive player.
Scored,
y'all when I put him in, I'm being serious.
Wait. I want to hear him.
Y'all killing me, man.
All right, bro. Justin Tucker, bro. This is going to be fun.
Very important position playing now.
That is.
He is the only player when he lines up the kick. I don't think he's gonna miss. And you see a lot of NFL players and kickers now missing kicks. So I got
that. All right,
I respect it. That's I
don't have him in my list.
I don't have a kicker on my list.
All right, Sterling, who is your second honorable mention?
I got Saquon Barkley. I feel like that was a tough one because obviously I didn't know where he was going to be at this year.
Barkley high.
Me too.
Hey, we finna get into it then.
Okay, all right, for sure.
My second honorable mention is Justin Herbert as well. I just wanted to see what he would say. I think the reason why I don't have him in the top 25, I have a few quarterbacks up here. Obviously, with the top 25, quarterbacks are probably the easiest to put up here. But I have him below the other guys just because he needs to show me a little bit more. I think the ceiling, obviously they have a lot of injuries this year. The ceiling on that team is really high. But I think he has the talent to be in the top 25. But I think as of right now, the guys I have above him have just shown me a little bit more. That's not a knock on him.
Wait a minute. You had Tucker higher than him?
Who, me?
Yeah.
No, I didn't have Tucker.
No, I
over
just
here.
wondered.
I was like, what? I was,
I thought
All right, the final honorable mention, Dad. Who's your final honorable mention?
all right, this is probably a little shocking, but I'm gonna explain. I think he's been kind of up and down this season. He's had some amazing games, but he's had some weeks where he's looked trash. So my first honorable mention, the person I kind of struggle with the most, is Lamar Jackson.
I mean, that's fine. Christian, why you make that face?
You're right. Why you making that face?
How the guy who had
Lamar
Justin Tucker on his list? Huh?
you said Lamar Jackson?
Yeah,
Yes.
he's the first guy out of the list. Was he
didn't
on
know-
your list?
26.
He
You
was
didn't
on
know
my
he played.
list.
Lamar
Okay.
was on your list. Okay, I mean that's
He was on my
respect.
list.
Football. That's crazy.
Sterling, who is your final? Or no, Christian, who is your final honorable mention?
My final is Saquon Barkley, because if you look at the O line of
Both y'all had him as honorable mention.
and the quarterback play.
I was going to get crucified, boy.
That's crazy.
Bro,
I think that's a valid spot for him because he hasn't put it all together yet, and he's been injury prone.
He has been injury prone. I'll give you that.
That's
Sterling,
my only reason why he's at my.
But the ceiling for him is very high though if he does stay healthy.
Mhm.
Okay, Sterling, who is your final honorable mention?
So this one between my 26 and 25 was really tough. I was literally 5 minutes before this. I was about to swap him out, but I got Dalvin Cook at 26. Not a knock on him. He's a dog, but there's just so many good players in the top 25. So
There's a lot of good players, and I think once we start to like move up, we'll start to realize like it's kind of hard to put 25 I mean, there's a good offensive player on every team, and there's 32 teams, so it's hard to, you know what I mean. So, my final honorable mention is going to be the first lineman, and it's Joel Bitonio. So I have him on here. I mean, he blocks for Nick Chubb. Yeah, he blocks for Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb is obviously one of the better backs in the game. He can't do that without an offensive lineman. He's been one of the better offensive linemen in the last couple seasons. I do have a few more offensive linemen ahead of him, but I have him as the next guy out. And I will go ahead and start with number 25 because we've already said this guy's name a few times. My number 25 is Lamar Jackson. That's where I have him. The reason, and he almost didn't make my list, but then I thought about he has won an MVP. And I know his numbers aren't eye-popping this year. I mean, he has 15 touchdowns, 6 picks, 1,600 yards. He has 500 yards rushing with 2 touchdowns. I just think when you're talking about top 25 offensive players, he is one of the most offensively gifted players we've ever seen. So I feel like he has to be on this list, even if it is at number 25. So that's why I have Lamar Jackson.
All right, my 25 is Jalen Waddle. Number 4 in receiving this year, over 700 yards, just nice after the catch. So yeah, I think not only are we talking for now, but up and coming. Led all rookies in receptions last year, but I think he's a dog. Obviously, not the number one wide receiver for the Dolphins this year, but even at that too, he's putting up better numbers than most people's one. Like I said, he's 4th in receiving this year.
Yeah, he didn't make my list. Did he make your list?
No, he didn't make my list.
I thought about it.
Yeah. I feel like these between like 17 and 25, we're gonna have a lot of different people. But once we get in the top 12 or so, we should all be relatively similar.
Yeah.
Christian, who is your number 25? Who is your
25? I got Tristan Wirfs, arguably the best right tackle in the game, and you got to admit he is only 23 years of age. And going off of last year's game against the Rams, he wasn't playing. And you guys know how that game turned out. So I got Tristan Wirfs.
Okay, that's a good pick. Sterling?
Lineman getting love right now. At 25, I feel like he could obviously be higher, but I got AJ Brown. I mean, he balled out in Tennessee with Tannehill. To be honest, this might be a hot take, but I feel like he elevated the game of Jalen Hurts. I think he has a lot, like 60% of what to do with his success. So that's why I got AJ Brown at 25.
AJ Brown did not make my list.
Okay. AJ Brown is on my list.
I just felt like the people, the other receivers I put ahead of him were better than him. And have shown more. Now, AJ Brown has been balling out this year, but I think the other receivers have just been a little bit more consistent. I could have substituted AJ Brown for DeAndre Hopkins, though, for sure. I think as of right now, for sure. My number 24, moving on to number 24, this is where I have Dalvin Cook. I already talked about him a little bit. I think he's a top 4, top 5 running back in the NFL. I think he is what keeps the Vikings offense kind of balanced. I mean, Adam Thielen's kind of taking a step back. You have Justin Jefferson. Kirk Cousins is a game manager. He's not the best quarterback in the league, but I think Dalvin Cook really helps him out offensively. And he's been consistent other than I think he tore his ACL or he tore his MCL or something. But other than that, he's been on the field. So this is where I have Dalvin Cook at 24.
All right. My 24, I probably got him a little low. But I think in backs, I like versatility. And I don't think he has the greatest versatility, although he is leading the league in rushing this year. I have Nick Chubb at 24.
Christian, why you make that face?
That motherfucker had Justin Tucker. He can make whatever face he wants to. He had Justin Tucker.
You just gonna throw that out every time?
All right, so
Yes.
my 24th pick, I got tight end Mark Andrews, and I think he's probably one of the most slept on tight ends because we only really talk about Kittle, Kelce, and he has just as good as numbers. And you got to think he is the whole offense aside from Lamar. He is their number one receiving threat. So I got Mark Andrews at number 24.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. That's pretty crazy. I got Mark Andrews at 24 as well.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, same reasons. I feel like he's their number one receiver. Even when they had Marquise Brown, he was Lamar Jackson's security blanket. So Mark Andrews, I think he's a top 5 tight end. It's hard for them to make the top 25, but when you balling like him, I think you got to be in there.
I have him a little bit higher than you guys. Maybe I'm.
I have him higher. He's on my list, but I have him higher.
So, kind of talking about tight ends, number 23 is where I have George Kittle. I have Kittle here and Mark Andrews a little bit higher. I kind of went back and forth with them. The reason why I have Mark Andrews a little bit higher is his receiving stats are a little bit better. I do think Kittle is a better run blocker. And I take into account availability, and I think Mark Andrews is always there for Lamar Jackson. He is a security blanket. You have Deebo Samuel in San Francisco, so he's not going to be the number 1 target. And now you have Christian McCaffrey, so he's arguably the number 3 guy now. Even pass catching, I think McCaffrey is going to be a more targeted player for Lance or Garoppolo over Kittle will be, just because McCaffrey is arguably the best receiving back in the game. So I think his production is going to go down a little bit. And in Baltimore, you really don't have anybody besides Mark Andrews catching the ball. So that's why I have Kittle here and Mark Andrews a little bit higher. But I put Kittle here above DeAndre Hopkins just because he has been a consistent top 2, top 3 tight end in the NFL. So I feel like I had to show him love.
All right, my number 23. I think he's number 1 in fantasy points for running backs. Great receiving running back, a lot of versatility. So I have him over some other running backs again to include Nick Chubb. I have Austin Eckler.
Sterling, what you got to say about that?
I like it. I respect it. I mean, I knew you was going with Eckler when you were talking about the receiving and everything. I have him a little higher, not too much higher, but I mean, I feel like that's a fine spot to have him at.
Okay, I respect that.
I did not have Austin Eckler on my list.
He ain't even thought of on my list.
Okay.
Yeah. You had Justin Tucker though. Justin Tucker better than him. You know what I'm saying? Justin Tucker out there doing it.
When you're kicking this to the 29-yard field goal, you'll be calling for Justin Tucker. So my 23rd, I got DeAndre Hopkins because for the simple fact, like with him not in the Cardinals offense, we see the drastic difference and the downfall of Kyler Murray without having a true number 1. And I know last year he was a little injured, but he has been consistent over the last 5-10 years. And plus the quarterback play, it didn't matter who was a quarterback, he's always going to catch the football. So I got Hopkins at 23.
That's wild. I also have DeAndre Hopkins at 23.
Oh my goodness.
Bro, y'all called each other before this?
Hey, he cheated off my test, bro.
Come on, man.
But no, I mean, I got D-Hop there because I was watching his first game back. I mean, the guy went off. I had him in fantasy that week. I mean, like he put up 100 yards. So I mean, he came back right into the lineup and did what we always know that he does with every quarterback he's ever had. So I feel like I almost left him off the list, but I had to give him some respect. So D Hop is there.
Okay. I think now we're gonna start getting into the players that maybe we don't have. So at 22, I have Joe Burrow here. Do y'all have Joe Burrow on your list?
Yeah,
I'm sure you know I have Joe Burrow on my list.
I got Burrow.
Christian, do you have Joe Burrow on your list?
Nah, I don't have Joe Burrow.
But you got Justin.
All right. Well, so the reason why I have Joe Burrow, I feel like him and Herbert were very comparable, but what took him over the top is going to that Super Bowl. So that's why I had Joe Burrow there. He's having a really good year, 2,300 yards, 17 touchdowns, and 6 picks. Now record-wise, what's the record? 4-4? 3-4?
Yeah, 4-4.
Yes, I mean his record isn't that good, but he's still playing good individual football. So that's why I had him there, not any higher. I have a few quarterbacks above him, which I feel like rightfully so. He should be right around this area.
All right, my number 22. I kind of feel like this is a prestige award that I'm giving here. But he's actually, when I looked at the numbers, he's actually having a decent season. So 13 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. All offenses having issues, but I don't necessarily think this all lies on his shoulders. This is where I have Aaron Rodgers.
Wow, I feel like that's kind of low.
I do too. I have him a lot higher.
I mean, and again, if I was doing this based off of historically, I would have had him higher. But this year, and especially when I look at the weapons that they kind of don't have, obviously, I think if Devontae's there, he's much higher. But with the weapons they don't have in Green Bay, this is about where I have him. If I had to say what team, what situation, what quarterback would I want for this year?
Christian, who's your 22?
You got Dak Prescott on your list? You look like you got Dak Prescott on your list.
Who got
What
no
are you
way,
talking about, right? Right.
But
You
my
said
number,
Justin Tucker with
Dakota.
confidence, like
My number-
I got him. They're not going to expect the Justin Tucker. You said that with confidence.
my number 22 pick, I got Christian McCaffrey because I think we've seen the instant success of him going to the 49ers. He's still, when healthy, arguably the best dual threat running back. You can split him out wide. You can do pretty much whatever you want with him. And I think he's going to have a really good season with the Niners because they are a run-first team primarily. So that's my number 22.
Okay.
Sterling?
22, I have Tom Brady. He was definitely going to make my list. There was no way I was going to leave him off. I know that there's a whole lot going on with his personal life, and I factor that in as well. But also the fact that he just came off of 5,300 passing yards last year. He's number 2 in passing yards right now. I'm sure his attempts are way up there as well. But 9 touchdowns, 1 interception, like that's nothing to really shake your head at. So despite the way the success the team is going, I got him at 22.
I do not have Tom Brady on my list.
You don't have Tom Brady on your list?
No, he didn't. Make my
Okay.
list.
Why do you feel like now?
Yeah.
So again,
the first talking point. Why don't you have him?
So again, when I'm looking at this year, and even if I just took it from a number standpoint, right? We're talking about now. I don't knock the 9 touchdowns. What we said, 9 touchdowns, 1 interception. Obviously, he's keeping his interceptions low, but we're talking about quarterbacks with 20 touchdowns. So Mahomes has 20.
Yeah.
Allen has 19. So there are quarterbacks who have doubled up your number of touchdowns. And it's not due to lack of weapons. Mike Evans has been there all but 1 game. Like I said, I gave Rodgers the pass due to his lack of weapons. Tom Brady doesn't have that same issue. Tom Brady Godwin has been there most of the season. You've had Julio this season.
So I have a question.
Mhm.
Is your list just off of this year, or are you taking into account last year or anything like that?
I'm taking it. So I'm saying almost like the 100 best players this year. Because I think Tom Brady finished first on that in the little
He
NFL.
He had
But
5,300 yards passing last year.
yeah, but he doesn't have 5,300 yards passing this year. He's not on pace for that this year.
I mean, what is he on pace for? He's on pace for 5,000
and 20 touchdowns.
You think he's going to end with 20 touchdowns?
I don't. I can only.
I'm willing to make a bet on that.
I can only go by where he is.
So I mean, I feel like if you have Aaron Rodgers in your list, but you don't have Brady, that's crazy.
I think Tom Brady has worse numbers than it. Aaron Rodgers has more touchdowns.
But he's got worse circumstances, though.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers is kind of.
And that's what I said. I gave Aaron Rodgers credit because he has more touchdowns and worse receiving core.
Because Godwin did come off the ACL.
I mean,
Ryan
so he has.
Jensen's out.
So you're taking. So I'm gonna name the stats. So Aaron Rodgers has 1,800 yards.
Yep.
Brady has 2,200. So Brady has
Okay.
more yards. Aaron
Yeah.
Rodgers has 13 touchdowns. Brady has 9. Aaron
That's
Rodgers
more.
has 4 picks, and Brady has 1.
Yeah,
So
and Aaron Rodgers has a worse receiving core.
I mean,
Would
that,
you
but
would you agree or disagree?
By
I
far.
agree.
I
No,
can name
I
I
agree
can
with
name
that.
3 people in Brady's receiving core that I know for a fact are all pro players.
I
can't.
agree. I agree with
there's
that.
There's a major difference in the ability of his skill position players. Tom Brady has much better skill position players, and still Aaron Rodgers is putting up better touchdown numbers.
I mean, he turned the ball over. He has less yards. I feel like it's debatable. I'm just saying. I feel like it's debatable.
But I think if you put Aaron Rodgers in that Tampa Bay situation, he is massacring Tom Brady's numbers this year. Tom Brady has looked bad in games, and I mean, and we can talk the 9-1. There are missed throws, underthrows, skipping balls. Tom Brady has not looked good this year.
That's true.
Who
He doesn't look like Tom.
Right. Well, and yeah.
So who said their last 22? Was that you, Jeff?
Whoever said Tom Brady.
I said Tom Brady.
Okay, so I'm at 21 then.
Yeah.
Okay. At 21, I have Creed Humphrey. So a little bit more lineman love. Center for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah.
They're not really known to have crazy good linemen. But I chose him because he protects. I mean, obviously he protects arguably the best quarterback in the game. They have decent running game with Isaiah Pacheco, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Jerick McKinnon. So he's got to be halfway decent. So that's why I have him there. Just because I tried to balance out my list, I didn't want strictly skill position. So I try to do my research on the best offensive lineman in the game, and he did come up numerous times. So I gave him some love at 21 for Creed Humphrey.
Yeah, linemen are hard. They're hard, and they're hard to really kind of put someplace.
Yeah.
I have linemen. I don't have a bunch, only because to me it's super hard to place them. Like, how do I say? And again, this is no knock to Creed, but how do I say he's better than some other skill position? And maybe he is, but that's tough. What do we say? 21.
Mm-hmm.
21 is where I have Dalvin Cook. Again, a very versatile back. And doing great things on a great Minnesota team. And I said this earlier on another podcast I'm on, that Minnesota may be one of the most slept on teams. They just picked up Hockenson. So that that they have weapons there. When you talk about Thielen, who's been great, when you talk about obviously Jefferson, when you talk about Hockenson, and then Dalvin, who's kind of for a while just been the guy kind of keeping it going. Obviously injuries have been an issue for him, but he's having a good season this year, and this is where I have him.
Okay, Christian, who do you have at 21?
My number 21, I got Deebo Samuel. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, no way.
Yeah, it's low.
Man,
That's low.
I mean, because I'm looking at it, I don't think he's a pure wide receiver yet.
But
He
that's
can
so.
he can jet sweep.
But
He's not the aggressive.
I'll let you go. I'll let you go. Go ahead.
yeah, let the man let him
My
finish.
fault. Go
No,
ahead, man.
Look at this. So I'm just looking at stats right now. So 2019, 802 receiving yards. 2020, 391 yards. 2021, 1,400 yards. And 2022,
Hey,
387.
name them rushing stats too.
No, that's not a count. Yes, his rushing stats. But I'm saying, far as pure receiver, he's not a pure receiver. Now, I think defenders do fear him when he's coming down the lane. Anyway, can tackle him. But as far as just receiver, I think that's a good spot to have him.
Okay.
So wait, let me ask you guys this: do y'all have Deebo Samuel's a little higher or a lot higher?
A little.
I have
high.
him. I have a little higher.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe I'm tripping. I have him high.
Yeah, I have
Okay.
him a little higher.
Well,
Okay,
that's the thing though, because you said receiver, and as a receiver for sure. Like I
Yes.
think of like
An
pure.
offensive player, though.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. As an offensive threat, like he's kind of
But
like.
this is where I gotta kind of take from him. I think the Debo running the ball thing is about done, right? I think San Francisco had issues at running back. Ever since Elijah Mitchell really wasn't a star, even coming to San Francisco. He was an unknown last year. So Debo ran a lot last year. I don't see him with Christian McCaffrey there getting the carries that he got previous. So with that, then now I do have to judge him mostly, not solely again, but mostly on his receiving.
Because you got to think, so 2019, he only had 159 rushing yards. 2020, 26.
That was his rookie year, though.
I know, but I'm saying people are just making it seem like he's just this running back. He really only started running the football 2021.
He had 8 touchdowns rushing.
Yeah, look at his carries.
That's what I'm saying, 59 carries.
So,
Yeah,
he was scoring every 7 touches.
If we talk about running back, Cordell Patterson is a better running back receiver.
No, he's not.
Bro, if you got Cordell Patterson on your list,
I'm talking about
I will exit this right
Bro,
now.
that was a crazy take.
He
Cordell
got
Patterson is not better than
Patterson
Debo
then
Samuel.
we're shutting
a
this
better
whole thing
running
down.
back. A better running back.
He is a better running back. Yeah. Well,
that's all I'm
and it's hard to say.
Okay,
it's
so
hard to say. It's
he's
hard
a better
to say
running back.
It's hard to
Who's a
say he's
better
a
player?
better running back because Cordero.
So if the game on the line, you want Cordell Patterson or Debo Samuels?
I'm going to take Debo Samuel 100
But,
days.
and it's hard to say that Cordero's a better running back. He plays running back as his primary position for Atlanta. Now, obviously, in the past he didn't, but that is his primary position for Atlanta. Debo doesn't play running back Debo doesn't have 20 carry games like Cordero does. So it's hard to, it's kind of apples and oranges. Sterling, did you say yours?
No, I'm about to go right now. So at 21, I believe this is my first offensive lineman. I don't know if y'all have him on here, but I got Quentin Nelson.
I have Quentin Nelson on my list.
Okay.
I have him on mine as well.
Yeah, I feel like he's everything you want in a guard. He could probably play center if he wanted to. He's absolutely dominant. I don't even feel like you can really like pull up any of the stats like pressure percentage or anything. You can just pull up the tape. He's a bully. He's a monster.
I agree.
Protected Andrew Luck all those years. I mean, you can attribute a lot of Jonathan Taylor's success to him. I think his first 4 seasons he was a Pro Bowler and All Pro in all 4. 3 seasons he was an All Pro first team. That's insane to me. I haven't seen any drop off in his play at all, even though the team isn't bad. It's not his fault. So I got Quentin Nelson at 21.
He just got paid too. Another one of them Notre Dame linemen.
Yeah, they push him out.
Okay, moving on to number 20. I feel like I might have this guy low. But I was thinking in perspective of all the positions. If it was just this position alone, he may be a lot higher, obviously. But when I'm looking at quarterbacks, running backs, receivers, tight ends, linemen, I had him here. This is where I had Jamar Chase. I have Jamar Chase at 20. I think, do y'all have him on your list?
Yes, I have him a little higher than that.
Yeah,
okay.
I have him.
Okay, so I mean, he had 1,400 yards his rookie year, 13 touchdowns. He has 600 now, 6 touchdowns this year. I think coming into the league when he was in the preseason, he was dropping all the balls and stuff. That was kind of weird. And then he had a breakout year, goes to the Super Bowl with Cincinnati. I think he is getting to that point where he could be a top 5 receiver. There's a lot of good receivers in the NFL. So it's really hard for me to put him above the guys I have above him. But he's definitely a top 25 talent offensively. There's a lot of weapons on that team. So it's hard to say, I mean, if you input someone else that's on this list on that team, what their production would be like, or if you put a guy like him in DeAndre Hopkins' shoes with Houston, does he produce? So it's kind of hard to gauge, but he's definitely a top 25 talent. This is where I have Jamar Chase at 20.
So the reason I was adamant with Mr. Christian about his last pick, number 20 is where I have Debo. I have Debo Samuel at number 20.
Okay. Christian, who do you have at 20?
Oh, and let me say this too. My list wasn't just based off of this year's, maybe like the last 2-3 years, but also like when you line up
I did the same thing.
Who is the better overall player? So 20, I got Deshaun Watson. And
okay, bro.
I think a lot of people forget about
him. Bro. Come on, Christian. Come on.
I'm being serious. But
I know you're trying to make me feel good, but come on, bro.
No, this is legit. I think besides from Mahomes and Allen, he's the only quarterback when he can make whatever play on the field. He has never had a good O-line. He's only had one receiver. And I think maybe
last
when
time Deshaun Watson played, was the day right after Noah finished that arc.
Was
I don't even
2020.
remember. I don't even remember what Deshaun Watson looked like.
But let me ask you. So who'd you have on your list as quarterback? You had Joe Burrow, right?
I definitely
I had Joe
No.
Burrow. So don't
Okay,
give your
so-
list up, but so far I've had Joe Burrow.
Do you think he's better than Deshaun Watson? When you line them up, if you would pick a
Yes.
quarterback, you would pick Joe
No.
Burrow over Deshaun Watson.
Yes.
No,
Yes, absolutely.
No,
I don't.
come
I don't
on,
think-
man.
But I think
I-
right now I'm gonna put him over though, personally, just because we haven't seen him play in a while. But I mean, if you're looking at Deshaun Watson seasons, I don't think Joe Burrow's seasons match up with him, and he's had way less weapons than Joe Burrow.
Yeah, well, again, we're comparing apples to oranges. If you're comparing Deshaun Watson, who's played more seasons in the NFL than Joe Burrow,
Okay, just look at his
theoretically-
best season. Just look at his best season.
Yeah, but you're comparing his best season to one season.
Okay,
Joe
look
Burrow
at
played one season.
so let's look at Deshaun Watson's first season and Joe Burrow's first season. Deshaun Watson had a better season than him.
Joe Burrow got hurt his first season.
That's true.
I'm saying Deshaun Watson didn't play his first season either. I'm talking about their first starting quarterback season.
So 2018. And
2018, Deshaun Watson.
2021.
Deshaun Watson threw for 4,100, 26 and 9 on the Texans. He only had DeAndre Hopkins. He had nothing else. He had the worst
Okay,
offensive
and
line
what
in
was
the
Joe
league.
Burrow's numbers?
So I'll look for you right now.
With an extra game.
So you said 4,100, 26 and 9. Yeah, we'll take into account the extra game.
And let's take into account what you said about Brady and Aaron Rodgers as well. The talent discrepancy between the two, because that was your argument between those two.
You said he had better numbers. So the talent discrepancy doesn't matter when you said he had better numbers.
But it does matter though.
So you didn't say, hey, there was a talent discrepancy. You said Deshaun Watson had better numbers in his first season than Joe Burrow.
So Joe Burrow threw for 4,600 yards, 34 touchdowns, and 14 picks.
So that sounds like he had better numbers.
So he threw 5 more picks and he threw 5 more touchdowns, and he had 400.
And he
also had
500
better
more
receivers.
yards.
Yeah, and he had
better
Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd.
No. You said he had better numbers. You didn't say he had better talent. You said he had better numbers. He didn't have better numbers.
Okay, so let's
That's
say
not
that.
better.
Okay, so let's say that Joe Burrow and him have identical numbers.
They don't have identical numbers.
He threw more picks than him.
He also threw for 500 more yards.
So he threw for 400 more yards, but he threw for 5 more picks and 5 more touchdowns.
Okay.
So those are identical numbers.
I don't consider
So
that
he
identical.
threw for 30 more yards.
And he
a
went
game.
to the Super Bowl.
He lost. And he was so
Hey,
so he was
Deshaun
on a-
Watson, has Deshaun Watson even been in the playoffs?
he's won a playoff game on
He's
the
been
Texans.
to a conference chip.
He's been
the divisional round. On the Texans. On the Texans.
He ain't been in no conference championship.
On the Texans.
Well, that's the thing, though. You say the Texans, but that was a
Yeah,
good
when they had
team, though.
DeAndre Hopkins.
And who
That
else?
was a good Texans team.
Who
Yeah,
else?
they
did they
had
have?
a good.
Will Fuller?
I don't remember the team. It was 10 years ago. It was
They had-
It was a good deep threat.
It was 3 years ago. They had DeAndre Hopkins, and I can't name any other receivers on that team. They had Will Fuller, but I think he had a torn ACL that year. I'm pretty sure he had a torn ACL that year. So he had Will Fuller and DeAndre Hopkins. He was the most sacked quarterback that year.
Yeah,
I can't name you the running back they had. Joe Mixon's a top 10 running back. The Bengals had a significantly better defense.
Joe Mixon didn't make my list. I think I have 10 running backs ahead of him.
So
He's
you
still-
believe when he
still
comes
good,
back
though.
and plays for the Browns, he's not going to be a top 5 quarterback?
That's
when he comes
projecting
back?
though.
I believe
I
that
don't-
he is not going to be a top 5 quarterback.
I don't
Okay, no, that was just a question. Okay.
And
Yeah.
if he is, it definitely won't be off rip.
It won't be
Yeah.
what?
It won't
Off
be
rip.
off rip. Like it won't be like immediately. If he gets to top 5, it'll have to be sometime like maybe late next year or something. But I can't see that
Because so I will say this: I don't have him on my list, but I think Christian having him here is not like crazy to me. I didn't even think about him. He wasn't an honorable mention for me, but it's not crazy because the last time we
So-
saw him, he led the league in passing, and it's not like he's been hurt. It's not like he can't come back what he was because the last thing that we saw him, he was the best at what he did. So it's
Wait a minute. We going the best at what? When was Deshaun Watson the best quarterback in the league?
He led the league in passing, so he
That
had the
doesn't
most
mean-
passing.
No. He had the most passing yards. That doesn't mean
Yes,
he's the
he led-
best.
So he led the league in passing. So that's
So that
my
doesn't
point.
mean he's the best at what he. That doesn't make him the best. That
So-
means he had the most passing yards. He
So the
didn't
last
lead the
time-
league in touchdowns.
okay.
He didn't lead the league in
So-
wins.
Again, he had the most passing yards. So let's say
And you're talking about he had the most. He was on a 4-12 team.
and he led the league in passing. So that shows how good he is.
Yards.
Passing yards. He led the league in passing yards with a terrible receiving core. Terrible.
on a 4-12 team. Nobody controls wins and losses more than a quarterback.
You're right. But if you're looking at, so 4-12 team and he led the league in passing yards. I guarantee you there's no other quarterback in the last 20 years that did that on a 4-12 team.
I mean, I don't know that off the top of my head. There may be. I don't know.
Look at Aaron Rodgers or Brady. I'm pretty sure one of them led the league in passing yards last year, and both of them were in the playoffs. So he was the most sacked quarterback.
So
and he led the league in passing
on that 4-12 team, he had Will Fuller and Brandon Cooks, and both of them played. So you're telling me he had no talent, but he has 2,000-yard receivers who've been 1,000-yard receivers without him. But you're telling me he had no talent.
When did Will Fuller? When was he a 1,000 receiver without Deshaun
maybe
Watson?
not Will Fuller, but Brandon Cook has.
Yeah, Brandon Cook's been 1,000 yards.
Maybe not Will Fuller. Will Fuller's been mostly
So again,
Will Fuller and Brandon Cooks.
So again, my entire argument is
You
Deshaun
just
Watson.
said he had nobody.
He had that. They were 4-12. That team was terrible.
And they had David Johnson.
David Johnson has been a shell of himself for the last 7 years.
He wasn't David Johnson on the Texans. He was David Johnson on the Cardinals, but in Houston, I don't think he was anywhere near what he was.
So again, this team had David Johnson. Again, we call him whatever we want to. The guy has produced major levels before. Maybe not with this Texans team, right? Again, Will Fuller and Brandon Cooks. You can't tell me he didn't have talent. That is not due to a lack of talent.
So you're telling me right now, any other quarterback could have did what he did?
I mean, how you want me to plug a quarterback? I don't know.
No, but
I don't know. I know Tom Brady's never been 4-12.
The entire argument, and
in his whole career,
Tom Brady has never been on the Texans in his entire career.
Here's another thing that you got to factor
on the
in,
Texans.
though. You can't undermine how important a role that coaching plays into it as well, though. Like
coaching,
I don't know who the coach was that year.
He had 5 coaches in his last 5 years. So
if it was O'Brien,
I don't know who it was. Bill O'Brien.
I'll say this: the Texans haven't had a good coach ever. So, I think it was Bill O'Brien.
And again, the entire argument, what I'm saying about Christian is he had Deshaun Watson here. Deshaun Watson did not get hurt, and it's like we don't know if he's going to come back. Not the same. He's suspended.
But a guy who's missed 2 years of football, right? For whatever the reason, there's a possibility that he's not coming back the same.
There is a possibility. There is that possibility.
So the same way that somebody from injury
that's not the same. No. That's not the same.
It
that's
literally
not the same.
is. 2 years is 2 years.
No. So if me and you are playing basketball and you decide I'm gonna take a year off to go on vacation, but I tear my ACL, that's way different.
The only difference is does my injury stop me from being great?
Yeah,
right? Does my injury, like, hey, maybe I can't run as much anymore. But 2 years of not playing football is going to have, and again, not playing football in the NFL in games is going to be an issue. I don't think that's going to be something that he's just going to come back and he's going to put up 4-12 with 5,000 yards. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, the 4-12
the best team he has ever been on, as far as O-line, 2 running backs, receivers, tight ends.
So we'll see.
I think I'll take Brandon Cooks and Will Fuller over Amari Cooper and Donovan.
Bro, stop it! You're just talking, bro. Stop.
Well,
Amari Cooper is one of the best route runners.
David Njoku.
I might give you.
Did I mention Njoku? Did I put Njoku on my list, or did I say they're receivers?
But he's a receiver, though. A tight end is a receiver.
Okay, I said I would take those 2 receivers over those 2 receivers.
But if you're okay, so does David Njoku catch the ball?
Okay.
I mean,
make your point.
Am I in the 3rd grade?
Okay,
that's a dumbass question.
No, but the point of it is yours. That's like saying I'll take Nick. Okay, so for example, look at Leonard Fournette. I'll take Nick Chubb over Leonard Fournette, obviously. But if you look at Godwin, if you look at Mike Evans, that offense is better.
I'm comparing receivers to receivers. You're throwing in a tight end. That's a different position. I'm saying I would take those 2 receivers over those 2 receivers.
Okay.
Now, if you want to throw in Njoku, okay. I don't know who the Texans tight end was. Maybe Njoku's better. I don't know. But I'm talking about 2 receivers to 2 receivers.
Okay, so think about it.
I'm not saying everybody who may catch the ball possibly. I'm saying starting receivers,
but that matters.
Starting receivers.
But that matters.
It didn't matter to my point. My point was I would take these 2 receivers.
Okay.
My point wasn't
they're still.
Would
a
I
better
take
team,
their
though.
whole offense? It was.
But
I would take these 2 receivers.
So you take Will Fuller and Brandon Cooks over Amari Cooper and who?
And whoever the Browns, who is it? Donovan Jones, Peoples Jones, or whoever it is. Whoever their second receiver is.
Okay.
Michael Jones,
Okay.
and David Bell, like they don't have much. But I will say you can compare receivers to receivers, but I feel like at the end of the day, it's compartmentalizing because if you're comparing the success of each, you have to take everything into account: the offensive line, coach, the running backs. I feel like you got to take.
So
that
yeah, so that is a valid point. If he comes back and doesn't have the same success, then what do we say the reason is? Right? Because now we're saying that the offensive structure is better, right? You just said the 2 years shouldn't affect his ability. So if he doesn't have the same success, then what is the reason?
And I think there's no reason. I think Deshaun Watson just isn't, what he was.
That's fair to say.
Um,
But I also don't think there's going to be like an air raid offense, though. I think Nick Chubb is going to. I mean, he gets the ball more than almost any other running back in the league. So
and rightfully so. Yeah. So
Christian, did you name your 20 or no?
That was my 20.
yeah,
Who? Oh, yeah.
Okay, so it's Sterling.
you started.
Now you're gonna be trying to tell us Justin Tucker deserves to be number.
Hey, I'm
Sterling,
just trying
who's
to.
Sterling, who's your 20?
I got Lamar Jackson at 20. I feel like earlier in the season, I was hearing things. I wasn't fully sold on it about him possibly being in the run for like MVP. I think he was probably like at like 4 or 5 at the time. I think they got some quality wins under the belt. I haven't watched every Baltimore Ravens game. It's tough when your number one receiver, not tight end. Obviously, Mark Andrews is number one pass catcher is Rashad Bateman, who hasn't really lived up to where he was drafted at. I think he has potential, but again, you also take away Marquise Brown. I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of my picks you may disagree with, but I base a lot of them on value to their team. Because if you unplug Lamar Jackson, like, yeah, you can put, what was it, Huntley or Trace McSorley in there?
No, it's the dude. What that dude? Whatever.
was
all right. He was pretty good.
He was solid, but it's not Lamar, and you're not winning. You're not really winning games like that.
I mean, you go 4-12 with him.
You go 4-12, lead the league in passing yards.
Yeah, you lead the league in passing yards with him.
Hey, Jameis did it. Did he lead the league in passing yards? He was like 7-9.
He did.
Like 30 picks too.
We're not gonna get into that.
Touchdowns, 30 picks, but that's again, we're not gonna go back to that. But that's why I got Lamar Jackson there. I think he is the Baltimore Ravens. They used to be the staple was the defense, but now I think it's Lamar Jackson.
Alrighty, moving on to number 19. We talked about him briefly a second ago. This is where I have Nick Chubb. I have Nick Chubb at 19. Last year he had 1,200 yards, 8 touchdowns. The year before that, 1,000 yards, 12 touchdowns. The year before that, 1,500 yards, 8 touchdowns. He's on pace this year for 1,500 or 1,600 yards and 18, 19, 20 touchdowns. Playing with Brissett, obviously they're not throwing the ball around a bunch with that quarterback. He's a game manager. I didn't expect them to do much this year with Watson being out and stuff of that nature. But I mean, he's still producing, so I think he has to be on this list. So this is where I have Nick Chubb. I have him at 19.
19, I have Mark Andrews. Again, I think he kind of rides the wave like Lamar. He's had some amazing weeks. And then he's had some weeks. You had an Amber Alert? I think he had an earthquake.
You're good.
Yeah. I think he's had some weeks where he hasn't looked great. To include, I think 2 weeks ago, last week he got injured. But again, I think I have him as my second best tight end in football right now, and I have him at number 19.
I just went to grab a water real fast, man.
But you got up like it was an earthquake or something. I didn't know.
No. I didn't want to like cause a scene. So
you did it all dramatic. You did. You made it dramatic.
My fault.
But
Go ahead.
I got
Question 19.
number 19. I got Quentin Nelson, O lineman, because we got to account for Jonathan Taylor's stats is mostly accredited to him. And then I just looked up the quarterbacks. So 2018 was Luck. So obviously that was like his going out his last years. Jacoby Brissett, Brian Hoyer, Phillip Rivers, and Carson Wentz, and they have no true number one receiver. So the whole offense is based on the totality of the O-line. Obviously, it's not just Nelson, but he is arguably the best guard in football. So I got Quentin Nelson.
Wait, I'm sorry. What was the purpose of you mentioning Phillip Rivers in there?
Oh, just to show he had no offense.
No. What did you say?
But everyone got mad by Phillip Rivers.
No.
Just to show he had no offensive help as far as quarterback, receiver, and things like that.
He
So
took
that's
them
why
to the playoffs. So I don't know.
Oh my
That's
gosh.
another story. But okay, I like Nelson. On the topic of Chargers, I got Austin Eckler at 19. That's where we're at, right? I got Eckler at 19. This will be the theme. If you hear any Chargers players, you can call it bias. But I look at it as I watch every single game, every single snap. So I feel like I see things a little bit differently. Now he might not be that prototypical, I'm just going to hand you the ball every down back. But as far as production, last year we hailed Jonathan Taylor as a great running back, which he is. I think he was the best running back in football last year. The only player that had as many touchdowns as him last year was Austin Eckler. 20 touchdowns, which is insane to me. And right now, as it stands, Austin Eckler is tied. I don't know who he's tied with, but he's tied for the most touchdowns in the NFL right now with 8. So he's on pace to have another phenomenal year. I think the offense, the play calling isn't the best right now. I think he just had like a 178-yard rushing game, which is kind of an anomaly for him. He doesn't really rush over 100 yards a lot. But he'll rush for 500 yards and then he had like 900 receiving yards. So like, 900 receiving yards in 2019. I know a lot of receivers, number 2s, some number 1s that don't even do that. So that's why I got Austin Eckler up there.
18. At 18, this is where I have Tom Brady. I have Tom Brady at 18. Yeah, he did not make your list, right?
No.
Christian, is he on your list?
Yeah, he's on my list.
Sterling?
Tom Brady? Yeah, I had him at 20.
Yeah, he said Tom Brady already.
22.
Okay. Yeah, I have him here just because the consistency. I mean, I know he's having a bad first half of the season. I think they'll end up being fine. He'll probably end up with between 45 and 5,000 yards passing, maybe 30 touchdowns, between 6 and 10 picks, maybe. I think they'll somehow sneak into the playoffs, even though they're having like a rough stretch right now. Like I said, I think they'll be fine. Last year, he threw for 5,300, 43 and 12. The year before that, 4,600, 40 and 12. I just think he's been consistent. I couldn't put him any higher than this, though, just because of the age. And I mean, when I'm looking at top 25 offensive players, even though he is considered to be the GOAT, it's hard for me to put him above other players that are electric or who hold a little bit more value to their team. So that's where I have him at 18.
Okay, they're going to go 4-12, too.
Maybe.
What number are we at? All right, number 18. I am sure you all have this person higher. I'm probably a little low, but I am, and this was really maybe even a recency bias here, just based on the way he's played kind of this year. But this is where I have Devontae Adams.
I knew it.
There's no way. There's no way you have him.
I knew it was Devontae Adams. I don't know why.
Yo, that's.
I mean,
I'm not gonna lie. Wait. Before you say anything, I don't know what's worse, this or the Devin Booker. That's bad.
No. Okay, so
Devontae Adams at 18 is crazy.
Yeah,
is
I mean,
Devontae Adams or is it the Raiders?
So Devontae Adams is 16th in receiving this year. He just had a game where he had 1 catch and 3 yards.
He got
I mean, he is not so. Part of it, and this is what we have to say. We can go back and look at Devontae Adams' numbers with Aaron Rodgers, and they're amazing, right? And they're probably we're probably looking at one of the top receivers in the game. But I have to look at where he is right now, right? And right now he's playing with Derek Carr, and right now in yards he's what did I say? What did I say he was? 16th in yards. He has not looked good this year. I can't. Again, if I'm looking at this year, there are players I can't put him over. I can't put him over some of these other players. So, and again, I'm basing that off of where I see him right now, and this is where I have him.
Yeah, I got him a lot.
That's crazy.
So,
Christian, you got Devontae Adams on your list?
Yes, he definitely does.
yeah, I have it a little higher than that.
Okay, all right.
But number 18, I got George Kittle. And
Okay.
I know the last 3 seasons his stats weren't really up there, but I still think he's probably one of the best tight ends yards after catch. And far as the importance to the 49ers, I still think Kittle is up there, and his run blocking is pretty good, and also the pass block. But I think he does make Garoppolo better, and the tight end is a scapegoat for most quarterbacks. So I got George Kittle.
Okay. Like I got him a little higher. At 18, I got Joe Burrow at 18. He's leading the league in passing yards right now. I think he threw for 5,000 last year.
And his team's not going to go 4-12.
He might go 4-12. I will say I was gonna bump him a little lower. Like I know he was missing Jamar Chase this last game he played. Part of me, I know I wouldn't say it's an excuse. I think it's a valid reason. But I feel like as a quarterback, for me to rank you higher, you kind of have to be able to elevate your team when you still have T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd, who is a vet. The tight end isn't bad. What is it? Hayden Hurst. You still got Joe Mixon. O-line isn't playing the best. I'll say that. But also that game was against the Cleveland Browns, which obviously Jacoby Brissett is doing a lot better than a lot of us thought he would be. But it's the Browns at the end of the day. I would have Burrow higher. I feel like that game influenced where I put him, to be honest. But 17 touchdowns, 6 ends, still has a 101.9 passer rating, leading the league in passing yards. He's still a great quarterback.
So, just a question, Sterling, before we move on.
Okay.
Do you have Herbert on your list?
Of course.
You have Herbert higher than Burrow, though?
Yeah, I do.
Just asking. Okay, moving on to 17. My number 17, this is where I have Mark Andrews. So I had Mark Andrews here. Did someone just say Mark Andrews? I think Christian said Kittle, right?
Yeah. I have Mark Andrews at 19.
Okay. Yeah, I have him at 17 just because, like we said earlier, Lamar doesn't have a wide receiver to throw to. He only has Mark Andrews, and Mark Andrews has produced. As right now he's on pace for about 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns. Last year he had 1,300 yards and 9 touchdowns. He hovers right around between 800 and 1,000 yards every year, 700 and 1,000 yards every year, between 7 and 10 touchdowns, which is really good for a tight end. Now, obviously, he's getting a lot of targets because he hit 153 targets last year, and I would, if I had to bet, that's probably number 2 in targets behind Kelsey. But I think if you're talking
last year he beat Kelsey in targets.
Okay, so I think if you're looking at top 25 offensive players, he has to be on here. Just because what Sterling said, the value of his team, he's probably the second most valuable person on the entire team on the Ravens. So that's why I have him at number 17.
Okay. At 17 is where I have Jamar Chase. I think we've talked about him enough. Great receiver. Obviously, it's just a matter of consistency. Injured now, but looks like true number 1. And I think, he's going to continue to go up. That's all I got to say about Jamar.
Wait, Calvin, I got a question. So just projecting in the next 5 years, do you think he would be a better player than Odell Beckham? Better receiver?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Now I was curious.
I think Odell Beckham had a good season or two. But again, Odell with injuries and consistency issues. I think that's what kind of took Odell. Obviously, came and kind of set the league on fire, but he couldn't maintain it.
Yeah, only ask because I still see interviews of NFL players who say he's a top 5, top 10 receiver. So I just wanted to see what y'all thought about that. But my number 17, I think this player is highly underrated and disrespected. So I got Alvin Kamara.
That's a good pick.
I love Kamara.
I wanted him on my list.
You don't have Kamara on your list?
I don't.
That's crazy.
Because I'm gonna just read y'all some stats, and we got to think like he is important, obviously, to the Saints offense. But okay, so 2017, he had 728 yards. 2018, 883 yards. 2019, 797 yards. 2020, 932. But one year he had 16 touchdowns, another year 14 touchdowns. And you also got to count, he split carries with Mark Ingram some of them years. And receiving stats, 81 receptions, over 81 receptions in the last from 2017, 18, 19, and 20, 800 yards receiving. I think that's pretty. I think
Yeah,
it's
Kamara's
safe
a
to say
beast.
he's probably, huh?
Steven, you don't have Kamara on your list, you said?
I have him on my list. Sterling doesn't.
Oh,
Yeah,
Sterling.
I don't have-
I think he's probably the best dual threat running back. So I got Kamara at 17.
Dad, stop.
As
Sterling, who
he
you
says,
got?
he's the best.
Sterling, who you got?
I got another dual threat, but I got Debo, somebody we already talked about. I got Debo Samuel there. I would like to see. I think last year he had really good receiving numbers. He had like 1,400 yards last year,
Yeah.
6 touchdowns. Obviously, you got to factor in the fact that he's carrying the ball. Like I wouldn't even call him a gadget guy because that's obviously like I feel like that's disrespectful to him just as a football player. But again, like from my list, value to your team is huge. You take him away from that 49ers offense, aside from George Kittle, they are hurting. Like they are not moving the football. They're not really. I don't think you're able to really draw up plays and really have the talent like that. Obviously, I feel like having him makes Brandon Ayuk, who has more receiving yards than him, look a lot better. But I think it's because he's playing alongside Debo, as well as George Kittle. But that's why I got Debo there.
Alrighty, at 16, this is where I have Kamara. So that was a close. I mean, pretty much identical. For the same reasons he said. I don't think he's the best dual threat running back in the league, but I think he's a top 2. So this is where I have him at 16.
Yeah, just to keep the train going with somebody we've talked about a bunch, I have Quentin Nelson here.
That's a good pick.
Well, thank you, Christian. I'm glad I have your approval.
Christian, who do you have at 16?
What? So are we on the 16?
Yeah.
My 16 pick, I got Trent Williams. Offensive
I got him
lineman.
higher.
I have him higher
okay.
as well.
And then I know you guys looking at him crazy, but you gotta understand premium.
Who's looking at you crazy?
I'm saying
I
y'all.
have him higher.
So pass rushers are premium, and obviously left tackles, you got to protect the quarterback. But he was a number 1 with the Redskins as well, and he is up there in age. He's still producing, still being able to get off the edge and run block.
Christian,
And
everybody said they have him higher.
Oh, really?
You don't
I
gotta
didn't hear
sell
that part.
it. You don't gotta
Oh,
sell
shit. Okay, my bad. I didn't hear that part. Okay, well, I got Trent Williams, 16. I was trying to sell my man right there.
Sterling,
I'm
who you
sure
got at 16?
Trent appreciates the love. I have this is the first of this player is making an appearance on the list. I'm sure you guys have him a lot higher, or maybe a little higher, but I have Stephon Diggs at 16.
I have him way higher.
And I feel like again, this was really
Yeah, I
hard
have
for
him
me to
higher.
put together. I wanted to put him in that 12 to 9 range, but again, I feel like there's so many like just really solid players, and it was hard to put him up. To be honest, I feel like I could have put him a few spots higher. One based off of his seniority in the league.
But he's producing.
He's producing. He's a dog. Which again, I don't really have an argument if you want to put him higher because I want to put him higher, to be honest. But I kind of wanted to stick to my list. I didn't really want to change anything around.
Okay.
I went with my gut there. He's one of my favorite receivers in the league. Top 5 receiver for sure. But I feel like when we're talking about offensive players and the value to their team, he's high up there. But it was just hard to put him ahead of some of the other guys as far as like what they mean to their team.
Okay, at 15, this is where I have Derrick Henry.
Ooh.
I have Derrick Henry at 15 just because he gets the ball so many times. And we kind of talked about this in the NBA one. Y'all weren't on the show, but we talked about this with not wanting to call someone a one-trick pony. But I feel like he's not a – kind of with the dual threat thing. Like when you're talking about offensive player, he's kind of just a guy you give the ball to and get out the way. which I respect because it's like the old fashioned kind of game. But when you're looking at a few of these other guys that I have on the list, I like them a little bit more because they could do a little bit more.
So I have Henry higher, significantly higher. And part of that is because I think there is no single player outside of quarterbacks, let me take quarterbacks out of it, that are as synonymous with their team's offensive success as Derrick Henry is with the Titans.
Okay.
That is literally their entire offense. I mean, I guess you can kind of say Cooper Kupp last year, but really, I don't think any single player is as literally tied to the team's success as Derrick Henry is. Because if Derrick Henry has a bad game, the Titans are going to lose.
Yeah, if we're looking at if we were taking just skill positions into account, I mean, I have some guys up here who I think Derrick Henry is more athletic. You know what I mean? Like he's a better football player. But
Yeah.
I'm thinking, I mean, like for example, we already talked about this guy. I don't want to give away my list, but so we talked about Trent. No, so we talked about Trent Williams, for example. I have him above just because I think Trent Williams is more impactful at his position for their quarterback. He's a left tackle, so he's more impactful in that situation than Derrick Henry is, just because I can't really name another left tackle that has the kind of impact Trent Williams has. Now you got Derrick Henry and you got other guys. I mean, you got other running backs. I'm not going to name people because I don't want to give my list away, but there's some other running backs who you can plug in who can still produce like that. And Trent Williams he's that guy at left tackle. That's the only reason why we're talking about offensive linemen. It's kind of hard, but that's where I have him. I have him at 15.
Okay. My 15, I have that's where I have Kamara. So, and we've talked about him a lot already.
Christian, 15.
So 15, I got Justin Herbert. The guy can make every throw, and I think a lot of it, his coaching does hold him back on some of the decisions.
Sterling over there puckering up, boy.
No, him. Oh, yeah, he cheesing.
Hey.
And then Keenan Allen does miss a lot of games, and I think he always figures out the way to put it together. So I got Herbert up there at 15.
I have Justin Herbert at 15 as well.
Bro,
oh my goodness,
I don't know what
you
y'all got going on, bro.
I don't know what it is, but
Man cheated, man.
So again, like I said with Eckler, I watch every game, so I feel like there's a certain level of bias for sure. Like I don't think you can really get around that. But again, I feel like I have a closer look in a different lens as to why they've had the success or lack of success where he has. I mean, last year with a healthy receiving core, he was number 2 behind Tom Brady in passing yards. But he also had 38 touchdowns, 15 picks, a little high, a 97.7 passer rating. They didn't go to the playoffs because their coaching was absolutely inadequate. And I feel like that plays a huge factor as it is this year. People are expecting Justin Herbert to go lights out and contest against Josh Allen for MVP. It's not really looking like that right now. But again, you got to take into account I don't know any other quarterback that's missing their starting 4 receivers right now. No Keenan Allen, no Mike Williams, no Josh Palmer, no Jalen Guyton. And the last 2 guys you can shake your head at, but like those are guys that produce in this offense. On top of that, he's lost his all-pro left tackle, Rashawn Slater. He's only played 1 year, is already an all-pro. I feel like that's a huge factor as well as Joe Lombardi having the most boneheaded and just bland play calling. You got a guy with probably a top 3 deep ball in the game throwing dink and dunks across the field. And it's like he's young, so I'm not going to give him the reins to the offense yet. I don't think he's not going to be like Peyton Manning, just like calling all these plays and audibles. So he's going to have to – he's kind of a slave to the system right now. But as far as ability, I don't know if he has a ceiling.
Okay, moving on. 14, this is where I got Quentin Nelson. He's one of the best offensive linemen in the game. We already talked about him a little bit. Obviously, blocking for Jonathan Taylor. So Jonathan Taylor is successful. Quentin Nelson is a big part of that. So I'm not going to take too much time talking about him. So I have my 14.
Yeah, I think everybody's 14 is where I have CMC. Obviously, the only concern there is his ability to stay healthy.
Christian, why'd you make that face?
Now I'm gonna let him finish, and I'm gonna ask my question.
Okay.
Yeah, his ability to stay healthy. You know, if availability wasn't a part of the game, this is somebody who could easily be top 2 or 3. But I think it's something that we have to take into account, right? I've been in a bunch of fantasy drafts this season where people, wouldn't even draft him, and not due to his skill set, but due to his ability to stay healthy. Now, obviously, he's been doing pretty good this year so far, but it's always a concern with McCaffrey. Go ahead. What's your question?
So you believe he's better than Kamara when they both fully healthy?
Yes.
Yes.
And it's debatable, but
I mean, they're both good. No knock to either one of them, but
I mean, far as stats, I don't think it's as close as a debate. Far as stats,
What do you mean?
Kamara.
When healthy, yes, it is.
he rushed for 1,000 and caught for 1,000 his last full healthy season.
2019, yeah, he had 19 touchdowns.
yeah, on the
But that,
Panthers,
again, but again, that's like the Deshaun Watson thing. 2019, that's ages ago.
I'm not doing the Deshaun Watson thing anymore.
Oh no, I'm talking about far. That's a similar argument. You're saying when fully healthy.
Yeah, and
So
the difference though to me is that we have still seen glimpses of Christian McCaffrey where we haven't seen Deshaun Watson at all, right? So we still are, and again, obviously he hasn't been consistent, right? This is why I would tell you, I think if Christian McCaffrey was a player that played 16 games, 17 games every year, he'd probably be in my top 3, right? But the inability to stay healthy to me is what knocks him down. But we've seen him in
played every game
time
this year, by the way.
Yeah, and I said that this year he's been healthy. But we've seen that versus, like I said, Deshaun Watson, where, and again, obviously a different scenario, right? Apples to oranges a little bit, but Deshaun Watson we haven't seen in 2 years.
And just to kind of tell Christian, he does have better stats than Kamara this year.
I mean, rushing yards, but more touchdowns. Kamara has more. Like he's been more consistent.
McCaffrey has more yards and more touchdowns total, and rushing and receiving this year.
Look at
Who's your 14? Who's your 14, Christian?
Devontae Adams. Because I know you said he didn't have. So I'm looking at the stats as far as just
No boys must have forgot
games.
about Tay, boy.
So he really only had 3 bad games. Arizona, 2 catches, 12 yards, and just recently.
I don't think how many games have they played?
He's played 7.
That's almost 50% of his games. That's not a good percentage.
I know, but he didn't let me finish. So out of those 7 games, he's really only had 3 bad games. New Orleans, 1 reception, 2 yards.
You're saying he's only really had 3 bad games. That's almost 50%.
Yeah.
That's not good.
It's a new offense, a new quarterback. He was in the same offense for like the last 8 years. So those things I take into account. I'm not gonna say he's just diminished as a player. He's still arguably the best route runner. So, and he did have a 124-yard game against the Chiefs. He was only the threat out there. So I still got love for Devontae Adams. So I got Devontae at 14.
I got him a lot higher.
Okay. Yeah, at 14, I think he was already on this list, but I got George Kittle. He's my number 2 tight end. So I think it's obviously who number 1 is to me. They compared him to a lot, him to Kelsey. I don't think it's really that close. But I think Kittle, I mean, 2018, I know it was ages ago, but 1,300 yards from a tight end is wild. And then he followed up with another 1,000 yards. He's had some injuries, and I feel like people have schemed him a bit more. I'd like to see some more touchdowns from him. But, I mean, as far from the run game, he comes in big. He comes in clutch. He's the best run blocking tight end in the NFL. I don't think that's really debatable. And what he can do with the ball in his hand after the catch is also, I think, is a problem too, because he got some speed. But that's why I got George Kittle there.
So moving on to 13, this is where I have Debo. And for me, it's not really even for like his stats. It's just when I'm looking at a top 25 offensive player, like I feel like he is so versatile. And he can do everything. He can take a direct snap. He can play receiver. He can play running back. He's running over linebackers. He's running over safeties. I mean, you saw with the play with Jalen Ramsey a couple weeks ago. Like he's just a force to be reckoned with. And again, it's not even really his stats to me. It's just the way he looks, the way he plays. To me, he's a top 15 player. Again, there's some guys up here that do I think he's a better football player than them? Yes, but I think the impact on their team is a little bit more. But I think with CMC joining the team, he's going to fall back a little bit stats wise. But again, I think it's just going to make their team even better. I was talking to Christian about this when CMC got traded. This might realistically be the best offense in the NFL now if McCaffrey can stay healthy. McCaffrey is arguably the best running back as far as dual threat. Deebo Samuel he can run the ball, he can catch the ball. You got a top 3 tight end. So it's like
So the only thing I will say is I would probably go with that Vikings situation. So I think it's them and the Vikings probably neck and neck. Especially when you're talking Dalvin Cook. And then I think Jefferson, who I have higher than Deebo, is a better number 1. Again, that's me. And I think Thielen is a better number 2 than Ayuk. And now especially when you add in Hockenson, which I think Irv Smith was a little down on my list, especially in comparison to Kittle. And I'm not saying Hockenson is better than Kittle, but I think that's much closer. So again, I think they're neck and neck, those two.
Yeah. Who did you have at 13?
13. This is where I have Travis Kelce. Obviously, like I said, it's tough to put credit to a position. But he is my number 1 tight end.
I gotta be missing some people. I have to be missing people. I gotta be tripping then.
I'm sure.
Well, there are people that you've named that I have on my list coming up. So, yeah, this is where I got Kelce.
Christian, who do you have at 13?
13, I got Jamar Chase. Because obviously I think now he's at 6 to 8 weeks right now, but
no, well so they don't know.
Back up, Christian.
No, I was like, I couldn't hear.
He said,
they don't know. They didn't put him on IR because they're hoping that he can be back within 4 weeks.
Okay, but when healthy, man, it's kind of hard not to say he's not one of the most dominant receivers. Him and maybe Tyreek Hill, maybe a few others, the only guy who can take a slant 80 yards, like one play can change the whole game. So, and right now he has 605 yards, 6 touchdowns, only 7 games. So obviously he's gonna miss some time, but yeah. So his last game he played, 8 receptions, 130 yards, 2 touchdowns, 16.2 average. So I believe he's a stud. So I got Jamar Chase at 13.
Okay.
I'm sure you guys have this guy a lot higher. I'm ready for whatever flat comes with this. But at 13, I got Jonathan Taylor.
I don't have him. I have him higher. I don't have him ridiculously.
My reasoning, obviously, like last year, he went absolutely stupid. 1,800 yards, 1,800 rushing yards. He had over 2,000 all-purpose yards, which is phenomenal. 20 touchdowns. But the injury concern this year, I mean, he has 1 touchdown and 2 fumbles. That doesn't really sound like what I thought he was, a top 5 offensive player. That doesn't really sound like that right now. At the pace he's going at right now, he's not even going to finish the season with 1,000 rushing yards, which for somebody
he's been hurt though too. He's been hurt a little bit.
Yeah,
too.
And I factored that in. That's the thing. It's not his ability or anything like that. I think as far as ability, I think he's a top 3 running back, if not 2. But that's why I have him there. So I mean, he's projected to finish with like 900 some yards this year. So that's why I got him so low. Which 13. The fact that that's low says a lot about it.
Okay, moving on to 12. I'm not going to spend too much time on this guy. We talked about him a little bit earlier. This is where I have Trent Williams.
Okay.
I have Trent Williams at 12.
So 12. And let me, because I know this question is going to come up. 1, 2. All right. This is where I have Joe Burrow.
Okay.
Long story short. Oh, I know. It's my list.
Yeah. No, but you said questions going to come up. What question?
I thought somebody was going to ask, where do I have him with other quarterbacks? Like, where do I have him in terms of quarterback rank?
So number 12, I got Aaron Rodgers. Because I know this year is a down year, but we can't. And my list was based off the last couple of years, so we can't ignore that fact. And then also, especially quarterbacks, I'm going to compare and contrast. So it's like put another quarterback in this situation. I don't know if they would do so much better than him. So with the talent he has as of right now, I think it's decent for his numbers. So I still think, like, I'm not going to pick some other quarterbacks other than Aaron Rodgers right now, even though his stats are a little low because the arm strength, the ability is still there. It's not he can't play football. It's just the receivers.
I know I had Rodgers low. Did somebody say they didn't have Rodgers on their list?
He's on my list.
Okay.
He's on mine for sure.
Okay.
Sterling, who's your 12?
12. I got King Henry at 12. I won't spend too much time on it, but I mean, number 3 in rushing yards right now. Probably the most dominant offensive player in the league. It's debatable, but he has everything. He's the type of running back when you go in Madden, that's what you build. Well, he's 6'3", 6'2", 250 whatever pounds. Runs probably a 4.3, 4.4. He's just a freak, and he has the numbers to back it up. That's why I got Derrick Henry.
Moving on to 11. So I was kind of thinking about this when Christian was making his list for Aaron Rodgers. Sorry. Does anybody have this guy on the list? Because this is a guy that I forgot of, which when I was looking at my list, I'm like, could I have fit him in here? I don't think you guys do, because if y'all have him this high, then I'm tripping. Does anybody have Jalen Hurts on their list?
No.
Okay.
So Jalen Hurts was so you remember initially we had 4 honorable mentions. He was my 4th.
Okay. I was making sure
I actually had him with a question mark because I'm like, 1 year is not enough for me, as far as just 1 year.
8 games.
So
now he's balling out, though. He's balling out,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think it's just a.
Okay, at my number 11. Oh, go ahead, Christian.
But that's probably one of the most loaded rosters in the NFL. As far as they probably have the best O-line, 2 running backs, Smith, they got Goddard, so yeah, I think they gotta credit that too.
Jalen Hurts is the most protected quarterback in the NFL. I think like his pressure rate is the lowest. I think he's number 1 right now. So I think he definitely has the best offensive line right now, along with the weapons too at every position. So yeah, I factor that in. No disrespect, he balling.
At my number 11, this is where I have CMC. I get that he's been hurt. I get all that. But when healthy, and I get that's a big question mark. I mean, he's played every game this year. I mean, just the one game with the Niners, we saw what he did. I think, obviously, he's not going to replicate that every week. But, I mean, if they're able to use him, which I think Kyle Shanahan can, he arguably could be in the top 3 on this list, top 4, top 5. He's that good. So that's where I have him here. The guys above him right now, I just couldn't move him any higher, even though I wanted to. I'm making this list. I actually made this list while watching that game when he was doing all that crazy stuff. So it could be biased, but I mean, I think the talent speaks for itself. So that's where I have him at 11.
Okay. My number 11, and I think I may have him the highest. I think you guys have already said where you have him. But this is where I have Saquon. Again, I just think, especially this year, I think the issue has been injuries. And while I dinged Christian McCaffrey, I think he's stayed a little bit more healthy than Christian McCaffrey. Obviously, he's putting it together this year. He's carrying that Giants team, which is literally a team right now that I cannot name a wide receiver on. So he is the entire offense on that team. And they're 6-2, something like that.
6-1, I think. Right?
6-2. They just lost.
Yeah, they just lost.
Okay.
So second in the league in rushing, obviously, and always been a dual threat. Has the ability to catch the ball out of the backfield. So this is where I have Saquon.
Christian?
Ooh, so number 11, I got Nick Chubb, and I'm just looking at stats. So 2018. 4 yards off of 1,000, 2019, 1,000 yards, 2020, 1,000 yards, 2021, 1,000 yards. And for 2022, he already has 841 rushing yards and 10 touchdowns. And also, he splits carries with Kareem Hunt. And their whole Cleveland offense is two running backs, but mostly Nick Chubb. So I think he's a little underrated as well. But yeah, I got Nick Chubb.
That's wild.
Oh my God, here we go. Go ahead,
This
sir.
man Christian, you copy me, bro. I got Nick
I
Chubb.
have Nick Chubb at 11 too.
Hey, Nick Chubb. I love Eckler, but Nick Chubb is my favorite running back in the NFL. I feel like as far as being the hardest to tackle, it's not that far from Derrick Henry.
Okay. I thought you was gonna say he's higher.
No. Derrick Henry for size a reason, but I mean Nick Chubb he's a grown man. He's fast. He's physical. He knows how to hit the hole. The stats he has to back it up. He's number 1 in touchdowns and yards right now. I just don't see I don't consider another running back better than him right now. So I got Chubb.
At number 10, I have Aaron Rodgers at 10. I like him here just because, I mean, he won MVP last year. Obviously, he doesn't have much weapons, so he can only do so much. But I think he hasn't been declining. I was watching, I forget what sports show it was, but they're saying how Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers need to retire. That's wild to me. I get they're having a rough couple of games, a rough stretch, but it's like then in the next 3 weeks, they're both going to throw for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. And then it's going to be, let's praise Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady again. So it's kind of just the narrative that the media kind of wants to display. But I still think he's a top 10 player. I have him above Brady just because he won MVP last year. And he had a really good year last year. So that's the reason why I have him at 10.
So I think Rodgers, more than Brady, is a lack of weapons. I think Green Bay has to get weapons in. I think if they got weapons in, he'd be the same Aaron Rodgers that we know. But yeah, continuing on. Number 10, this is where I have AJ Brown. And again,
that was a big miss for me. Maybe that's a person I didn't have on my list.
Yeah,
so that's one.
maybe recency bias. But so this is what I took into this. To me, he was a dominant receiver with the Titans. And that matters to me because when I look at his numbers, they're not going to be great. But he was playing with Tannehill in a offense that featured Derrick Henry, right? So I kind of gave him a little leniency, right? I graded on the curve, especially when I look at what he's doing this year. The guy has been absolutely dominant. Really kind of made that Eagles offense go. Really kind of the only major upgrade to that offense was him. And they went from where they were last year to now maybe, at least in the argument of being the best offense and maybe the best team in football. Now, again, there were some other changes, but he's the major change to the offense. Physically dominant, just cannot be guarded. So this is where I have AJ Brown.
Would you say, so if you were starting a team, would you take him over Metcalf?
Yes.
I mean,
And I like Metcalf.
That's a good question.
But
I was curious. I don't have Metcalf on my list, but I feel like they're similar players in stature and speed.
So Metcalf seems to, and physically, Metcalf is a monster. Metcalf as a receiver, though, seems to disappear sometimes. And I don't know why. And maybe part of that was rust before. As we're kind of looking and seeing him in Denver, maybe he was declined more than we thought. But Metcalf just seemed to have periods where he as physically fast as he is, strong and everything else, like why is this guy not the top receiver in the NFL every year? And he just doesn't seem to be there.
No, AJ Brown's a good pick because you got to think too. Last year, as far as the offensive side for the Eagles, he's the only new acquisition. I think the line was the same, and now Hurts is looking like a top 3 quarterback just off of the strength of AJ
I feel
Brown.
like I just said it.
Huh?
I feel like I just said it.
Oh, my bad. I hit that part.
That was the reason why.
But wait, just to kind of like go off that though, I feel like with Metcalf it's kind of tough because you have Lockett, and Lockett is like the security blanket on that team. So,
but you can say, but Devontae Smith is I don't want to say top, but he's a very good receiver for the Eagles.
Yeah.
No, I just mean for like when Russ was there. Russ is him and Lockett had that continuity.
Yeah,
for a while.
that's what I said. I didn't understand
hard.
it with DK. DK should be a 1,500-yard receiver every year, just based off physical attributes.
But Christian, what did you have?
Number 10, I got Brady here, and again, going off the last couple years, his stats for the last 2 years with Tampa Bay is better than any of his stats with New England. And also, when we say if you take a guy off this
Wait a
team.
minute.
What? Oh, aside from the 2007 year, aside from 2007.
Okay, and Tom Brady has a season where he has the second most touchdowns in NFL history with the Patriots.
But then we got to factor in his age as well at those 2 years. But then also the Super Bowl. But we've seen this team before he came and now, so it's a big difference. So I got Brady, and I think he's gonna turn it around this year because Ryan Jensen's out, third string left tackle. Godwin came back from an ACL. So it's some new pieces. So I think it's gonna take time, but I think he's gonna start playing a little bit better. So I got Brady at 10.
Okay. This is another one I'm sure you guys have a lot higher, but I got Justin Jefferson at 10. I think
I have him higher.
He after this season, if we redo this list and at the pace he's at, I would probably put him top 5 as far as offensive threats in the NFL. I just feel like he's done so much in his first 2 seasons. He's an absolutely dominant receiver. I feel like the one thing that why I have other receivers ahead of him is A, the fact that the receivers I have ahead of him have been doing it longer and doing what he's doing. And B, also, I feel like speed plays a big factor in your game nowadays. That's just the way that the NFL is going. They value a lot of deep threat receivers. I feel like pure route runners aren't really getting the
He's
love.
a good deep threat receiver, though.
He is. But when I think of Justin Jefferson, I don't think of top end speed. I don't think of take the top off speed. I think he uses his routes to set it up. However you do it, doesn't matter. If you're a deep ball guy, you're a deep ball guy. He is a deep ball guy. But I think a lot of bias when it comes to receivers comes to what is your straight line speed? Can you just take off and burn somebody down the field? But like I said, I think he can actually be the best receiver in the NFL in the next 2-3 years, to be honest.
I agree.
Moving on to 9, this is where I have Justin Jefferson. So I mean, we're pretty close. I have him here for all the same things you said. The couple receivers I have above him. I mean, I'm a Vikings fan. I just think those receivers are better than him. Not as a receiver, but as an offensive threat. There's obviously a guy that's going to be on this list that we should all have, who I think he's a better receiver than him. But offensively, you could put that guy anywhere on the field, and he's electric. So I'm gonna put Justin Jefferson here at 9.
My number 9 is where I have JT. Again, just I think obviously injuries this year that hasn't been prevalent. My only concern with Taylor is the wear and tear on the tires. I know he seems still young in terms of the NFL, but again, and I think me and Steven talked about this when we did the college football Heisman thing. He had a lot of wear and tear at Wisconsin as well from his freshman season. So as injuries didn't or weren't an issue prior to, but I'm concerned that now he may have some injury issues with all the wear and tear he got at Wisconsin, and then early in his career with the Colts.
So 9, I got Jefferson as well because I think the new head coach really highlights what he does well, and also Thielen's not really a valid number 2 anymore. I think he's a little older now, but
I think he's a 2.
I think he's a valid 2. I think he's a very good 2.
I'm saying he's a little older. Maybe when like 4 years ago, I think he's just getting a little older. And then looking at stats, he damn near had 100 yards every game aside from two games. So I think
last year or this year?
No, for this year. So I got Justin Jefferson.
Okay. So I got right here at 9, I got Devontae Adams. I got him there because despite the drop off in play this year, I don't think it's all because of his ability. Do I think that a lot of his success had to do with the fact that he was in Green Bay with Aaron Rodgers, with better coaching? Of course. I also feel like he was really the only pass target in Green Bay. I mean, Alan Lazard, like we're not gonna do that. But I mean, the man had in 2018 1,300 yards and 13 touchdowns. In 2020, he had 1,300 yards and 18 touchdowns. Ridiculous. 1,500 yards and 11 touchdowns. He wasn't even playing full seasons doing this. He was missing 2-3 games in the season doing that. This year, I mean, you got to look at Derek Carr. He's a bonehead when it comes to making making decisions. I don't like to come down on guys like that, but like he just does not make smart throws.
Because you're a
Now,
Chargers
my only thing with this is this was his choice.
Yeah.
Green Bay offered him a bag too. He wanted to go play with Derek Carr.
Yeah, and I think that's true. It was his choice, but I
He
don't.
personally said Derek Carr is as good as Aaron Rodgers.
And he was wrong. He was absolutely wrong.
Did Aaron Rodgers sign his deal first?
I think it was very close. I can't remember
Because I was thinking maybe he was unknown about Rodgers' status because he was back and forth.
who
with
signed
the-
for. I can't remember. I know it was I believe Aaron Rodgers signed first because I thought when Aaron Rodgers signed, I remember believing when Aaron Rodgers signed that Devontae was going to resign.
I think that was a big part of it. I think it was, if y'all get rid of Aaron Rodgers, I'm out. I'm not staying in Green Bay with no Rodgers. I think that was a big factor in it. Don't quote me on that, but I do remember that being a thing. Like they were talking about it, and then that's when the tweets started coming out and the dissatisfaction with the organization. But
And also,
again,
I think it was just lifestyle, as far as living in Vegas versus Green Bay.
it could be. I don't really want to go into that because I feel like there's bigger factors at play. And also, Kelvin, to your point, like yes, he did choose that, but I don't think that's indicative to him not having success. Like him making that choice, like the fact that you chose to be in Green Bay and chose to be in Oakland, or Vegas. That's not indicative to his skill as a player. That's just his decision.
Yeah, no, I'm with you.
So, I think he can still do what he does. He's had some great games this year. I think he had like 150 yards in the first game of the season. And still has that ability. To me, he's still the best route runner in the NFL. He's just playing. I mean, anybody who's a head coach under the Bill Belichick tree of assistants is not successful. Josh McDaniels is not a good head coach, so I cut him slack on him.
Okay.
Number 8. I think I have him low compared to you guys. I briefly spoke about him a second ago. This is where I have Tyreek Hill. I have Tyreek at 8. The guys I have above him, well, one of the guys I have above him, we'll talk about in a little bit. So what I have, he's a top receiver for me. The reason why I have him at 8 though, is because it's kind of like to what Sterling's point is. I feel like over the last couple seasons, he's been able to be a little bit more of a route runner, but he's just speed to me. He's electric. You can line him up in the backfield, kind of like Debo, stuff like that. But to me, he's just run straight, throw the ball up, which is effective. I mean, to a certain extent. But I
You
feel
can say the same thing about Randy Moss, and Randy Moss goes down as
Randy Moss is 6'4". Tyreek
And he was a better route runner. I'll give you that.
It's a little bit. Randy Moss is a little bit different because what
we're saying, Tyreek can run routes. Let's remember this year.
No, he can't.
This year he's the number 1 receiver, and it is not that Patrick Mahomes take the top off. It hasn't been. It has been a lot of short catches and run after the catch.
But he's also playing alongside the second fastest receiver, arguably the first fastest receiver in the NFL as well. They got 2 good deep threats, so you can't just shade over the top of Tyreek Hill the whole game because you have 2 deep threats on both sides.
But he was doing it with the Chiefs too.
And they had Nicole Hardman.
That's what I'm saying. The only thing I'm saying here is I would have believed that last year. Now I have Tyreek Hill higher, and again, I think it's all preference when we're talking receivers.
Right.
But I think he's just a take the top off guy. I think that kind of got dismissed this year when really he hasn't. I don't think he's caught the 60-yard bomb, which you've really seen Tyreek more this year than any other year. And again, which solidified it for me is you've seen a lot of 5-yard catches that turned into 20, 30-yard gains. You haven't seen a bunch of of Tua throwing the ball 50 yards. And what you've seen is on a lot of the deep throws, Tyreek has tracked them. It's not like, hey, I beat my guy down the field and he's not with me. It's a lot of Tyreek coming back to the ball.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's not a knock to him.
Yeah,
he's a number 8 guy on here. There's a few receivers I have above him, but I just think when it comes to being I can't even say it's offensive player, so I get that, but it's hard for me to put him higher when what he's known for is speed and running straight and kind of catching a defense off guard and stuff like that. Like to me, like the other receivers I have above him, that guy is getting the ball and you can't stop him. That's where it's more so like that's the way I look at it. That's why I have him at 8 and not any higher.
So that's
Hey,
the thing.
Steven, so
Go ahead.
if you were a defensive coordinator, the receivers you have in front of him, you would be more worried about the receivers in front of him as far as game planning than Tyreek Hill?
Okay, so wait. So let me answer this question. So just to kind of give my dad and Sterling some context, you're definitely referring to Cooper Kupp. So let's talk about that for a second. So for one,
I have him above Cooper. I have him in front of Cooper Kupp.
so Tyreek Hill to me is more athletic than Cooper Kupp. He's more.
Yeah, I don't think that's
explosive
the question.
He's more explosive than Cooper Kupp. But I think when you're looking at a receiver, I mean, for the Super Bowl, for example, everybody knew he was getting the ball, and you couldn't stop him.
Yeah.
I mean, he would.
So,
I mean,
but I think we say, and again, this is now you're talking about success. First of all, Tyreek has had success in Super Bowls as well. Second, there is no difference. There are plays where everybody knows Tyreek Hill is getting the ball, and
But
he
I-
gets the ball.
but so
Now, is it? But we're talking about two different ways of doing it, right? Cooper
yeah,
Kupp
like
is an
Tyreek's
amazing.
it's
It's
just
amazing
different for
run.
me.
Yeah, and that's what I said. It's a preference thing, right? Tyreek Hill is speed and athleticism. Cooper Kupp is an amazing route runner, has amazing hands. We can't knock that. They do it two different ways, but I don't want to knock Tyreek and say, hey, there's not times where we know Tyreek's getting the ball and he doesn't get the ball. It just may not be, hey, I route you up. It may be I run away from everybody.
No, so I think what made him put me here. I have Cooper Kupp higher, obviously, but what made me put him here is because we saw Cooper Kupp in the Super Bowl. The Rams lost Odell Beckham, and he stepped up. Now
You can't really say he stepped up. He was the number one receiver all season. It
Okay,
wasn't like, all
okay.
of it.
No, but my point is,
He's been
so
there.
the Bengals came in game planning for Cooper Kupp and Odell. It's not like they just said we're not even going to worry about him. But when Odell went down, now it's just Cooper Kupp. They don't even have to worry about Odell at that point anymore. That's my
Cooper
point.
Kupp had one of the greatest wide receiver seasons in NFL history.
No, I understand that, but if Odell Beckham is in the game, they still have to worry about Odell Beckham. That's my point.
Yeah, I think there's, and again, obviously you have to, right? I don't think when Odell went down, that changed how the Bengals were going to guard Cooper Kupp.
Yes,
I think the Bengals I think the Bengals said, man, I think Odell was kind of the hey, if he goes off, cool. Because if you look at early in that game,
yeah, he was eating.
Odell was eating.
So do you think this then? Let me ask you this. So you think if Odell continued to play that game, Cooper Kupp wouldn't have gotten the looks that he got? As far as defensive looks, I mean defensive looks.
This is obviously is hard to say, right? But it's not like Odell just came to that team. Cooper Kupp ate all season. Like I said, one of the best receiving seasons in NFL history. So again, I am sure that in terms of priorities, the Bengals' priority number one was stop Cooper Kupp. Now, wherever Odell, and again, this isn't a knock to Odell because Odell's a heck of a player, but I don't think all of a sudden it was, well, now we can stop Cooper Kupp. Whatever their plan was. Now, the only thing I would say that maybe was different is the Rams saying, hey, we're not going to force the ball to Cooper Kupp if they're going to single up Odell, versus now saying, okay, well, Odell's gone. We have to force the ball to Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, and I think that's why I have him higher, is because everybody knew he was going to get the ball. They had nothing else in that game.
Yeah,
So
that's fair. And that's your
they
reason.
yeah, that's the only reason why I have him higher. That's why I have Tyreek at 8.
Okay.
All right, at 8, I have Stephon Diggs. I kind of have a coming up run on receivers, but I think Stephon is amazing. I think he's a top 10 player for sure. What he's been doing with Josh Allen, obviously he did it in Minnesota. He was a great receiver in Minnesota, but ever since he's gotten to Buffalo, really he's kind of elevated that game, that team, to a point where now, we're talking about a Super Bowl favorite. And outside of Josh Allen, who's amazing in his own right, the next threat on that team is Stephon Diggs. Route running, I mean, again, we talked about guys who Stephon Diggs is not necessarily a take the top off guy, but probably one of the best route runners in football. So props, and this is where I have Stephon Diggs.
Number 8, I got Cooper Kupp. And I don't know, I was back and forth about this, but like he can play outside, he can play the slot. They run him on jet sweeps. I think they even had him at running back a couple plays. But last year he made the biggest plays against the Bengals, the biggest plays against Tampa Bay when they needed a play. And even this year, he's legitimately the only weapon on the team. They haven't really utilized Allen Robinson. They don't really run the football that well. So he is the whole entire offense. Now, I have a question, though. So for you guys, would you validate like his last season, him getting force-fed the ball? Would you say last year he was the best receiver?
Last year, he was
Undoubtedly.
Well, you were the number one receiver again, and probably one of the best seasons in NFL history on a team that won the Super Bowl. So not only was your numbers good, but your team won.
Yeah.
Because me and Steven was going back and forth about like it was about Michael Thomas that year where he had all those yards and receptions. I'm like, yes, he has stats, but it's like he's getting force-fed the ball. He's getting like 60 or 50 more carries than some other receivers.
You're knocking Michael Thomas? But you had Justin Tucker on your honorable mention list.
Is Michael Thomas a top 10 receiver anymore?
No, he's not a top 10 receiver. But you're going back to his season. You said in the season where he broke the reception record. What was he getting force-fed the ball? Yes. But to me, that speaks credit to Michael Thomas, right? Because Michael Thomas, everybody on the field knew Michael Thomas. And this is almost like, I guess, what Stephen was saying about Cooper Kupp is everybody know Michael Thomas was getting the ball, and he still found a way to get the ball.
Yeah.
Sterling, who do you have at 8?
I got Jamar Chase at number 8.
I respect it.
Yeah, he's up there for me because he's gonna, if he's not already, he's gonna be that guy who is, what's coming and you can't stop him. He makes contested catches, like jump ball catches. He can take a slant and he can go 80 yards. He can run every route in the route tree. And I think obviously the big comparison is him and Justin Jefferson. I don't really have a consensus on who's a better receiver right now. I think it's neck and neck. The reason I put Jamar ahead of him right now is I think as far as he's a faster guy, and that's just more attractive naturally. But also I just compared the stats of the rookie seasons. When Justin Jefferson came into the league, it was like, whoa, like this man is breaking Randy Moss's record. He had 1,400 yards, 7 touchdowns, and then Jamar came in and did his rookie year 1,455 and 13 touchdowns. And
so the only thing I will say, and obviously I'm a Jamar Chase fan, and I want you to win this argument, but I think this is where the extra game comes into play. This is where I'll give Justin the credit for doing that in 16 versus 17 games. Yeah,
but I think that's true as far as yards, but as far as touchdowns, I mean 7 to 13. That's almost, he doubled it with the extra game. So that's not, I get the yardage. But as far as like him scoring, his scoring ability and what he means to the team, like, I mean, obviously T. Higgins is a good receiver, but like kind of disappeared whenever Jamar wasn't there this last game against Cleveland. And on top of that, they played terribly. And the common denominator there is Jamar. Joe Burrow did not look good at all without his buddy. So I think he's very valuable to that team and that asset. So it was hard for me to leave him out of the top 10.
Number 7, I think all of you guys named this guy. I have Devontae Adams here. Did everybody name him already?
Yeah.
I have him here. I know we kind of talked about his stats. For me, even if we're going to consider this a down year for him, he's played 7 games. He has 500 yards and 5 touchdowns. He's still on pace for 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns. So that's not a bad receiving season by a receiver. Last year he had 1,511. The year before that, 1,318. And he missed some games as well. I just think his skill set is up there with anybody in the league. Route running, up there with Diggs. If one-on-one, I don't think he can be guarded. One-on-one, I don't think Diggs can be guarded one-on-one. I think those two are the only 2 guys in the league that can't be guarded one-on-one. Maybe DeAndre Hopkins that we talked about earlier. But I just think just because his numbers are down, that doesn't mean that he's not a top 25 offensive player. He's just having a little bit of a slower season, just like Aaron Rodgers, just like Tom Brady. I still think he's a top 25 offensive player because he's arguably the best wide receiver in the NFL. And his numbers show that. He's just in a new system right now. I think, like I said, by the end of the year, he'll probably have 1,200 yards, 12 touchdowns, which is still good for any receiver in the NFL. So that's where I have him. I have him at number 7.
So number 7, and again, this is probably not a pick that people will argue with, but I do want to explain. I have Trent Williams because I think he's as dominant at his position as anybody else is. And Christian kind of pointed it out earlier. Left tackle is arguably one of the most important positions on the field. And again, for a guy to do it at that level of protection, I have him at 7. Like I said, I know we get in the skill positions here, but this is where I have Trent.
Yep.
Ooh, number 7, I got Derrick Henry. Now, I mean, the 2020 season was amazing. And can anybody you know how much games he played in 2021? I feel like he had the foot or something, the foot injury, 2021.
Yeah, I think he missed a bunch of games in the middle of the season, and then he came back for the playoffs.
So he still had 937 rushing yards, 10 touchdowns, and he's on pace for 1,000. Now we got to look. I don't consider Tannehill a top 15 quarterback.
He played
And
8
what-
games.
He played 8
When
games.
did
8 games. Yeah.
when did AJ Brown get there? What, 2018?
19.
Yeah, 19.
Yeah.
So before that, he was the only offensive weapon. And even now, and then we can kind of argue if it wasn't for Tannehill, they would have went to the championship. So I think he gets his credit, but he is, if you take him off of that team, I don't think they win 3 games without him. And the ability not to get really injured, like he gets force fed and he's still in pretty good
He's
shape.
durable.
So
Yeah.
Derrick Henry.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So I had Trent Williams at 7 as well. I feel like we're talking about offensive players. Like, he is the best player at his position. He's the best offensive lineman in the NFL to me. I factor in his longevity and the fact that there has not been a drop off in his play. He's 34 years old. He's supposed to be out the league 3 years ago. As a tackle, I feel like it's harder to play than if you were like an interior lineman, a guard, or center. You might play a little bit longer, but you're a tackle. He 9-time Pro Bowler. He's been a first team All Pro a whole bunch of times. Like, I think it's not a debate. He's the best offensive lineman in the NFL.
Okay, moving on to number 6. This is where I have Jonathan Taylor. Now, he is my highest rating running back. Obviously, he's been injured this year. But I mean, if you just look at his production, his first year, 1,100 yards, 11 touchdowns. Second year, 1,800 yards, 18 touchdowns. I don't think he's going to be an injury-prone guy. I mean, he just has an injury bug right now. It's that simple. I mean, I don't think now all of a sudden it's, oh, he fell off, he's going to be injured the next 4 or 5 seasons. I don't think that's going to happen. He's never shown that. So, I mean, yeah, he's a little injury-riddled right now, but I think he'll be fine. Take a couple of weeks off. He'll be all right. But I think he is the most outside of even – I couldn't even say outside of McCaffrey. I think he's the most complete back in the NFL. I think he can catch adequately. He's not as much dominant runner as Derrick Henry, but he's just as electric as him. He has top end speed. I mean, I think he's the most complete back. If I had to start a team right now, I'm choosing Jonathan Taylor to be my running back.
Didn't he ran a 4.3, didn't he, at the combine?
I have no idea.
I'm like that.
I think so. I
I think
think
it was something
4-3.
ridiculous. We're at 6. So
Yeah.
6 is where I have Cooper Kupp. Again, for all the reasons that we talked about, just a dominant receiver, especially last year. Now, my concern there is he's had good seasons, but he seemed to really explode last year. Obviously, he's doing pretty good this year so far. But, I just want to see it over the course of a couple seasons. But, yeah, route running is ridiculous. So I got him at 6.
Christian, who's your 6?
Okay, number 6, I got Travis Kelce. He's on pace for 1,000 yards this season, so that'll be 7 straight 1,000-yard seasons. And also, he was this player before Mahomes got there. So when they had Alex Smith, and I think he doesn't get as much credit because it's Tyreek Hill, Mahomes, but the creativity that Ben-Ami and Andy Reid has is accustomed to the player he is. He's the best route running tight end. I think he's one of the hardest tight ends to bring down. And so if he does complete this 1,000-yard season, and if they go off to win the Super Bowl, will you guys say he's the best tight end of all time, or do
No.
you guys have?
Oh, bro, I don't know. If I
That's
can
hard
put him-
though.
No.
I think Rob Gronkowski is the greatest tight end of all time. I'm not talking. He's the best because I guess greatest. He didn't have the longevity, so the stats are follow. But I think ability wise, it's him. When you talk about GOAT, it's tough not to put Tony G.
Yeah, I GOAT. I gotta say Tony G. You gotta talk about Sharp there. I try not to go back before my time into the Kellen Winslows or whatever, but I'm probably looking at Gronkowski, Tony Gonzalez, and Sharp, Shannon Sharp.
Gates.
But I would have Kelsey.
Oh, and Gates.
See Gates, yeah, I'm biased. Gates is in my top 5.
You know that.
Like 100-something touchdowns.
Nobody got Jason Witten.
No,
Witten probably goes in that conversation, right? He deserves that,
Yeah.
especially longevity.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
You
So
had Travis Kelce. I also had Travis Kelce at 6. I think that's about 5. I think that's about 5 parallel picks at this point. Great minds think alike. Just not about kickers. But I got him at 6. I won't say too much. He's number 10 in yards, like receiving yards, and that's not tight ends. That's wide receivers, running backs, everybody. Number 10 as a tight end. That's pretty crazy. He's leading the league in receiving touchdowns, tied with Stephon Diggs. That's also wild, and I just feel like you can't cover him unless your name is Derwin James. But I just feel like you can't cover the guy. He's smooth as butter. He runs every route in route tree. He's like that. So I got Travis Kelce at 6.
At 5, this is where I have Stephon Diggs. I like him. Obviously, he was with the Vikings for a little bit. I have him as my number 2 rated receiver. I think. I mean, he's on pace right now for 1,400 yards and 14 touchdowns. I would say he is the most complete receiver in the NFL. He has the speed. He has the route running.
I don't think it's Stephon Diggs. And mind you, I'm asking in a comment. My only concern in saying that is that I don't think he's considered a take the top off guy.
No, he's not. But I don't think he's like a Devontae Adams is like a pure route runner. Like I don't look at him as a take your top off guy. But I think Stephon Diggs is just as good as a route runner as him. But he can get down the field a little bit better than he can. So that's why I have him at 5. The stats speak for himself, but I have him at 5.
At 5, this is where I have Henry, and I think I've kind of gave my mention as to why. Right, I think nobody outside of maybe quarterbacks mean as much to the success of their team as Henry means to the success of Titans. He is, as he goes, they go. So yeah, I have him at 5, and he is my top rated running back.
So my 5, I got Tyreek Hill, and I want to ask you guys, because you guys obviously watch more football than me. The last 5-10 years, who are some of like the fastest players? Because I come to mind like Deshaun Jackson, Ted Ginn.
We had this conversation actually. We had this conversation.
No, but we've never seen a guy his speed with his stature at his size. I'm not talking about like Julio. This guy's 5'10", 5'11".
Yeah, but he is solidly built. Now he is.
No, that's what I'm saying.
But he is not. Yeah, he is not a little guy. Like Deshaun Jackson, I think was a littler receiver.
Deshaun Jackson like
Tyreek. Yeah, Tyreek is.
No, that's what I'm saying. Compared
Tyreek's
to
probably
the
over
last
200
like
pounds.
the speedsters we're used to, we've never seen somebody built like this. And I've seen this stat. So Tyreek Hill receiving yards 961. All Falcons receivers, 943, all Giants receivers, 875, all Texans receivers, 853, all Ravens receivers, 790, all Bears receivers.
That's a good stat, bro.
And all Titan receivers, 658. And I'm thinking as like a cornerback, I wouldn't want to play him because if you play him 5 yards off, 10 yards off, he's gonna beat you no matter what. And also, I think he's the only player. Say there's 13 seconds left on the clock, 10 seconds on the clock, he could still possibly score a touchdown. So that's why I got Tyreek Hill at number 5.
Okay.
Which is also where I have Tyreek Hill.
Bro, y'all wilding out, bro.
Bro,
Hey,
somebody
but,
said
like,
somebody they listen said work off of this.
Bro, I don't even have this man's phone number, bro. So
Oh.
that's out the
That is
window.
true.
I put it this way. I used to not even put him in my top 10 as far as receivers. Now it's getting hard. It's getting hard for me to. And I'm talking about like 3-4 years ago. It's getting hard not to, just because A, he's doing it with Tua. B, right now he's 28th in average yards per reception, which you wouldn't think of that with Tyreek Hill. You're thinking he's averaging 18, 19 yards per catch. But that means he's running all the routes in the route tree. On top of that, the record for receiving yards in the season is Jerry Rice, I believe, about 1,800 yards. Tyreek Hill's on pace to be the first 2,000-yard receiver.
I thought it was Calvin Johnson.
It might be Calvin. I think Calvin Johnson did break. I think he had like 19.
Yeah, because I think Cooper Kupp is now second. He just didn't pass Calvin Johnson. Again, I may be making that up. That's off the top of my head.
No, you're right. Calvin Johnson had 1,964 yards, which is wild. I was off, but Tyreek Hill is on pace to have 2,000.
Yeah,
he almost has 1,000 yards halfway through the season. So that's why I got him up there. He's just one of the best offensive threats in the NFL.
Alrighty, on to number 4. So the next 2 spots, it was hard for me to do. These next 2, and then the top 2 spots was hard for me to do. So my number 4 is where I have Cooper Kupp. It was very hard to do between him and my next guy. The only reason why I had him at 4 instead of above to the next one is because the other guy did it for a little bit longer than he did. But I mean, the last season spoke for itself. He's on pace right now for 1,400 yards, 1,300 yards, another 11, 12 touchdowns. And again, they don't really have anybody else. They have Allen Robinson, but he's kind of been MIA. So again, kind of talking about the Super Bowl whole situation. He got force fed, still produced, got Super Bowl MVP. So I like him here. He could be higher depending on what he does this year, but he's my number 1 receiver.
So I'm at number 4. Number 4 is still not my number 1 receiver. He's my number 2 receiver, but this is where I have Justin Jefferson. Again, I think when we talk about a guy who can do everything, who can take your top off, who can run.
Wait. You're missing somebody.
Who am I missing?
Did you name Travis Kelce already?
Yeah.
Oh my God, boy, I was finna faint.
I named Travis Kelce a while ago.
Where was Travis?
I had Travis Kelce at 13.
Oh, okay, that's fine.
Yeah, but so I think
well, I was about to say,
you know, and you guys will you guys can probably guess who I have number 1, but I think in the do everything, the guy that I would want in the open field and at the goal line running that fade route, which is kind of my knock on the guy who I have above him. I don't know if he would necessarily excel in that situation. I think Justin Jefferson is the complete package as a wide receiver.
Christian, you're number 4?
Number 4, I got Diggs. And so looking at 2016, 2017, he was only 100 yards off 1,000 yards. So every season after that, he's had 1,000 yards. And he's not maybe the fastest and can't take it over the top, but I think he arguably has the best hands, the best route runner, the best off the line. He can go inside, outside, and also like he can make every catch. And before he was there, Josh Allen was not a top 5 quarterback. So I attest a lot of that to Diggs' play. So I got Stephon Diggs at 4 as my number 1 receiver.
That's a good point.
Oh, he's your number 1 receiver. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. I won't argue with that.
Yeah.
I got at 4. You might think he's a little high, but I have my reasons. But I got Aaron Rodgers at 4.
You said who?
Aaron Rodgers.
Who?
A-Rod.
That's crazy.
The reason
He
I
must have
still
been
have
eating one of them shrooms.
I mean, bro, he just won MVP. He just won an MVP, and he has no receivers. The Packers, it seems like they don't care about the man. They couldn't even trade go get a receiver for him. I saw that they put in for Chase Claypool, but they didn't win that trade. But like Alan Lazard, Romeo Dobbs.
Amari Rogers.
Anywho, what is it? The receiver they drafted in the first round, Christian Watson.
Yeah.
Where's he at?
He was hurt.
And Dubs. Yeah.
And he's dropping touchdowns when he is playing. So it's like he needs help, bro. He's still Aaron Rodgers. I know their record is terrible, but obviously losing the best receiver in the NFL when you already didn't have any receivers is gonna do that to you. But like he just came off an MVP season. I think he's also like over Green Bay. Like I'm surprised he's still playing this season, to be honest. I just can't justify saying some of these names and putting them as a better offensive player above Aaron Rodgers.
Alrighty, moving on to number 3.
Ooh.
So I have Travis Kelce here.
Not mad.
I think Travis Kelce not only has proven that he's the best tight end in the league, but he's proven that he arguably could be in the breath to be a top 5 receiver in the league.
Yeah.
And when I say like a pass catcher, Tyreek Hill left, and he's taken on all responsibilities as the number 1 option with Mahomes. He had that 4 touchdown game. But I mean, if you just look at his numbers the last 7 years, he's had over 1,000 yards every year. He should have over 1,000 yards this year. He's on pace for like 1,200, 7. He might have 12. He's probably going to have his most touchdowns this year. But I mean, just the consistency. And he did it with Tyreek Hill. And people could have said, well, they're having a lot of attention on Tyreek Hill being a deep threat. You take Tyreek Hill away, and it's kind of the same thing as Cooper Kupp. He's getting all the attention. I get they have Mecole Hardman. I get they have Juju now, but it's not the same as having Tyreek Hill next to you. And I think Travis Kelce's production has been ridiculous. And I mean, the other 2 guys I have ahead of him are quarterbacks. So he is the best skill position on this list as far as weapons. I think you could put him on any team and he's an instant impact. I mean, I think a lot of these guys are, but this guy right here is just, it was hard for me to, it's him. It was between him and Cooper Kupp. But with Travis Kelce, I mean, he's consistently done it. Cooper Kupp has only done it for a few years, and Kelce's done it for, 7 years. So that's why I have him at above Cooper Kupp, but it was close.
Okay. So I have 2 more skill position guys. I'm in my number 3. My number 3 guy is Tyreek Hill. Again, I think I would have. I was a non-believer in Tyreek Hill. Obviously, spending most of his time with Pat Mahomes prior to this season, and Mahomes obviously can air it out. But like I said, he showed me something this year. The ability to work underneath, the ability to be a possession guy, the ability to take a home run ball. So I have him as my number 1 receiver.
So I think number 3, I think is going to be a surprise to you guys, but I factored in a lot of things. So I got Lamar Jackson at 3. So
no way.
Whose fans is this?
Hear me out.
Bro,
Whose fans is
I
this?
thought he was an honorable mention for you this whole time.
No, he wasn't honorable. For me, I weigh a lot of things and I compare and contrast football. So first of all, just look at his rushing yards, but no other quarterback has to deal with what he had to deal with. He's never had a true number 1 receiver. Marquise Brown is not a number 1 receiver on anybody's team in the NFL. And also, he had the most players on injured reserve on offense and defense. So I think you got to take that into account. No running backs. And also, Stanley just came back this year, his best offensive lineman. And if we looking at quarterbacks, if you really line them up, can you say guys are way more talented than Lamar Jackson?
Not more talented, but they're better
quarterback.
But
whose team is Justin Tucker on though?
Again,
You're not giving him credit for Justin Tucker.
He
got Justin Tucker.
No.
Are you
to your point?
Remember,
we're discussing Aaron Rodgers.
Justin Tucker?
Look at Aaron Rodgers without Devontae Adams. Look at Tom Brady, and he has 2 number 1 receivers. So I'm saying if you put another quarterback in this situation, will they have performed better?
Yeah, you said you said Aaron Rodgers had Devontae Adams. Tom Brady had
look at the decline since Adams left.
Right,
and
you said
Tom Brady. You saying he's playing under his standards? he has Mike Evans and Godwin. Godwin's come
Yeah,
back from a
But what
ACL,
you're
so
not
I'm saying-
acknowledging is that Lamar Jackson has Justin Tucker. You're not
Hey,
acknowledging.
man, be serious.
So,
right
so
now.
y'all is. I feel like y'all really disrespect him. If we really switch up the teams,
He's on my
no other
list.
quarterback would be
He
doing
was
that.
my number one honorable mention.
He was my number 25. 3 is
He's
crazy.
Hey, I got him at 20. I feel like that's respectable. We talking about
Sterling,
offense.
Sterling, who's your number 3, bro?
My number 3 is Cooper Kupp.
Okay.
Triple crown, and he's balling this year too. I mean, he literally has the most receiving yards in a single season. That's insane. There's not a lot of people on this list that have, the most anything in a major category, a major stat category. He does. He played all 17 games last season.
And he didn't have Justin Tucker.
And he didn't have he was kicking field goals. Nah. But but like in the Super Bowl, like I remember watching that game. I won't say too much more about him because we were getting close to the bedtime. But we knew he was getting the ball. He was getting double covered. They was all over him in the red zone, and they couldn't stop him. Hands on his face, pass interference, and he was doing it. I literally said that like if he doesn't catch the ball, nobody else can catch the ball in this game. He did it, so that's why I got Cooper Kupp. He's just dominant. He'll break you down.
Okay. My number 2.
Well, I think you can say 2 and 1 because I don't think I would assume everybody has the same 2 and 1. It's just a matter of order.
Okay, so do you guys want to just do 2 and 1, 2 and 1, just go around it real quick?
Yeah.
Okay, so my number 2, I have Mahomes. My number 1, I have Josh Allen.
Mine is the same. I have Mahomes 2, Josh Allen 1.
Christian?
I have Mahomes 1 and Allen 2.
Yeah, I got Mahomes 1 now and 2 right now.
So,
Wait, so why do y'all
flip-flop.
have him 2?
So, well, the reason why I have Josh Allen at 1, it's more so what Josh Allen does. Mahomes is a great player. It's more so what Josh Allen does. I mean, if you look at Allen, he is arguably the number 1 rusher on their team, and he's their quarterback.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at the stats, so Singletary has 320 yards rushing with 0 touchdowns. Allen has 306 yards rushing with 2 touchdowns. Not to mention he throws the ball for them, obviously. So if you're looking at offensive talent, offensive player, I have to put Josh Allen there because I feel like the gap between Mahomes as a passer and Allen as a passer is smaller than the gaps between Josh Allen as a rusher and Mahomes as a rusher.
So, and I take it the same way, and I'm going to say it like this. The same thing I said about Derrick Henry, right? How much he means to his offense. Now, I say this because I can go back to Patrick Mahomes, before Patrick Mahomes when they had Alex Smith, and the Chiefs were still a good team. Now, obviously not to the same level, which is why Patrick Mahomes is number 2. But without Josh Allen, Buffalo may be the worst team. They have a good defense, but they may be one of the worst offenses in the league. They may be, if you put Alex Smith in place of Josh Allen, that may be one of the worst offenses in the league. Josh Allen means that much to Buffalo's identity and Buffalo's offense.
So you wouldn't put Mahomes ahead to seeing what he's doing without Tyreek Hill and when he had Tyreek Hill?
No.
I
So
think
again,
that's-
I respect Mahomes. I think Mahomes is amazing and has the potential to go down as one of the greatest to ever do it. Like I said, my biggest thing, and this kind of goes to what Steven said, with the running, with how much Josh Allen means to. Let me say this: if Josh Allen got hurt tomorrow, I think Buffalo
they would make
is
the
out.
playoffs. Yeah.
I think if and I don't know the Chiefs' backup off the top of my head, but I think if Mahomes got hurt, I think the Chiefs, depending on who their backup is, does anybody know who their
Shane
backup is?
Buechele.
Shane, and they got a chance. They'll probably trade for Justin Tucker.
But I think for me, like Mahomes can make every throw, the sidearms, the no look, the little pitches.
So can Josh Allen.
I think he's more of a deadly runner when he's looking to throw the football. Like a pure runner, Josh Allen is better. But I think as far as throwing on the run, I think Mahomes is better.
No,
And I don't know if
off script, I think Mahomes is probably one of the best to ever do it.
And
Off
then
script,
I've
Mahomes
never
is
seen-
ridiculous.
a quarterback. So like I was watching the game against Tampa Bay. Like I'm watching him. Like I've never watched a quarterback. Like I don't know what to do. Like there's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can do. You think you sacked him, you don't sack him. He gets out the pocket, he makes a 50-yard bomb. He can make every throw. And I think Josh Allen still has a tendency to make those dumb interceptions that he doesn't need to make.
Yeah, he did it last week.
Yeah.
So but Mahomes has done it too.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Over his career, Mahomes has forced balls, and I think that comes with having a big arm. Obviously, both of them have a cannon. I think when you have that, they're going to force some throws.
And when they go head to head, because I think they're going to end up facing each other. I think it's going to be more so.
We got a helicopter over the house. Who is that with the helicopter?
Hey man,
is that you? Is that you, Christian?
Yeah, that was me. But as I was saying, so like, I think they're going to face each other, and I think the biggest difference isn't Josh Allen's offense being better than the Chiefs' offense. I think it's the D-line and the acquisition of Von Miller. So I think Mahomes is still flat out the best player, and I think he's going to end up winning MVP. He's on pace. I think he's going to win MVP this year.
Josh Allen.
I think Josh Allen's going to win MVP, but
Sterling, why did you have him there?
I got Mahomes. I mean, I feel like it's a cheap shot to just say, oh, he got a ring. He's been to 2 bowls. They've been to 4 straight AFC championships. I mean, he's a one drop from Tyreek Hill away from going back to the bowl last year. I feel like it's hard. I really like the argument that you guys have about Josh Allen, because I really don't have a reason, like a solidified reason or like a stance on like, nah, Patrick Mahomes over Josh Allen all day. Like, there's no way you can debate that, because I think it's more than debatable. I think it's likely after this season. We got to let this season play out. I think that'll sway how I feel. But again, somebody who was I feel like everybody wants Mahomes to fall off so bad. And I'm a Charger fan, but like when they're in the playoffs and my team isn't, which is most of the time, I root for the Chiefs. That's unheard of.
How you do that as a Chargers fan?
I love Mahomes. It's Mahomes. It's Mahomes. It's not the Chiefs. I can't stand the Chiefs. When they had Alex Smith, they were ops to me. But I like Mahomes. I think he can be the GOAT, not one of the GOATs. I think he can be the GOAT.
And I think he's more of a savvier runner than Josh Allen. I think Josh Allen tends to take too much hits.
Would you
That's
take
a fear of mine?
Yeah.
Christian, would you take Mahomes or Jameis Winston?
I'm gonna take Mahomes.
Oh, okay. I was just wondering.
I came to the realization that Jameis Winston is not. I just came to the realization Jameis Winston is not. He's not a top 10 quarterback. I fought for money.
Wait a minute. You just came to this realization. Like this is an epiphany you just had.
This could be a whole.
Okay, we're not going to disrespect him, because as far as overall arm talent, he has arguably the best arm talent in the NFL.
So his problem is just sight. He can't see.
I just don't think he makes good decisions with the football. So I don't know what it is. So, but yeah.
All right, let me stop messing with you about.
But yeah, like I said, like Mahomes, he has a season where he threw 50 touchdowns and 12 interceptions.
Yeah,
that is insane.
He's a monster, and obviously the part is we have both of these guys 1 and 2. And I think, I think we're 50-50. I think you can flip-flop them. And I would feel just as comfortable. It's not like I'm so entrenched in this argument that it's unfathomable that somebody would have Mahomes over Josh Allen. I think that can go either way.
Yeah, more so.
I mean, in all honesty, we probably should have had Tucker up there somewhere, but
we should have.
It is what it is.
That's
what we were skipping.
64.
But let me ask you something. So, game on the line, 3 points. What kicker are you gonna pick? Robbie Gold. What's the Falcons?
I can't name 3 kickers.
Young Way Cool.
So
Young Hoku.
Game on the line. Everything. Your team chance to win the Super Bowl. What kicker
I don't think anybody would pick any other kicker.
I don't.
But then I don't like to disrespect. Man,
okay, but
like game on the line.
You had him as a top.
He's better than Vinatieri. He's better than Jastrowski.
You had him as a top 25 offensive player.
I'm surprised
You had him as a top 25 offensive player.
Nigga, Mike, what?
Like Selena
man's
Gomez
going
with a microphone.
That man's going to the Pro Bowl.
Oh my goodness, you had him
All right,
as a
Next
y'all.
time y'all team misses the field goal, we'll see.
offensive player. That
All right, y'all.
invalidated. Hey, when you post this up, post this with just 3 windows and then just block this window out. That
No. Put 4
Wait,
windows.
hold on.
I just
Hold
want
on,
Justin
last
Tucker.
question. Why did none of y'all have Mike Evans on your honorable mentions?
You had him?
If after this year he has 9 straight 1,000-yard seasons,
Did you
why
have
is
Mike
he
Evans?
Did
Did
no,
you
I'm
have
saying
Mike
why none of
Evans?
y'all? Why is he
Why,
constantly?
how are you gonna ask us a question
Why is
for
he
something you didn't do? What the-
No, I had him.
What's
I
wrong
had
with
him in
this
my
guy?
honorable mentions.
You
No, I
did
had him
not
in my
mention him
honorable
in your
mentions.
honorable mentions.
He was close.
Who was your
I
three
did.
Christian? Who was your 3 honorable mentions?
I had
Justin
Tuck,
Tucker.
Evans, and Saquon Barkley.
We calling him Tuck now?
All right, y'all. Hey,
like that,
we gonna cut the video here. 2 hours and 15 minutes. This is Clash of Cultures top 25
Let's go.
offensive players.
Yes, sir.
Hey, next
We
time
will-
we do this, to make this, I got to give me another old head. You know what I'm saying? So it could be all y'all young cats with Justin Tucker. You know what I'm saying? You got recency bias with Justin
There's
Tucker.
one dude in here.
All right, y'all. We'll see y'all next time.